Hola, hola, bienvenido. Me llamo Preston Jacobs, and here we are in the very echoey, my very echoey room here, in a very echoey office here in Santo Domingo. No proper ring light. Um, no proper. I don't have my mic arm up. Everything is odd and weird. And here we are, my very echoey room here, in a very echoey office here in Santo Domingo. No proper ring
Did
light.
did the
No proper. My
did
I don't have my
I
mic
want to
arm
say
up. Everything
look,
is
the
odd
live
and
stream kind
weird.
of cut in
And
before
here
the
we
intro
are,
here. I
my
think.
very
So
echoey
this is what
room
we're gonna do. We're
here
gonna play
in
this
a
intro
very
again
echoey
because I
office.
did.
You see, there was a proper there was a proper intro there. There we go. Who hears three Prestons? I don't know. I don't know. All right, so um, equi room. What are we talking about here? How about those Washington Commanders? Um, look. I think we've gone over this. Like we know that football is a beautiful, complicated sport, but we also know that it causes brain damage in 99%, literally 99%. Like that was the statistic after a study that it causes brain damage in 99% of professional players. And so at some point you have to say like, is it morally okay that that I that I have that I enjoy football? I mean, maybe it's part of it. Maybe it's like in boxing, you know. I know sacrilege incoming, but I'm at this point where I'm just like, it's so brutal. It's so brutal. You know, when I was a child, they did this thing called tackling in football. People that have been on my stream enough, they've heard me talk about this. There used to be tackling in football, and there's no longer tackling. Everyone just rams into each other as hard as they can, and that's a rule that could easily be put in, just like how it is a rule in rugby that a tackle must happen. If you pulled what American football players do in rugby, like, no, that's penalty, you're out of the game. Like, so, it's a it's but you know what, if they put it in American football, then it wouldn't be as exciting, would it? It wouldn't sell as there wouldn't be as many ads. They wouldn't sell as many cars and beer and all of the things that are part of it. I get it, it's a great game. Yes, not to mention fucking Super Bowl 50. That too. I don't know which one I actually makes me more angry. The brain damage for money, or the Super Bowl 50 thing. Like either one, like they're so fucking close to me. I understand that like one has no consequence to anybody except for like kids that really liked Roman numerals when they were young, and the other is like human being lives. But um, I don't know if I can support something that hurts people all the time. Um, Preston Man who works for the U.S. government. The thing about the U.S. government, though, like most of the U.S. government does things that are good for people, right? So, um, you kind of say, okay, like like the big thing that the U.S. government does is Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, right? And then even when you take the U.S. military, most of the U.S. military, that's salaries. That's like people behind office desks that do nothing, who march in circles on a useless base in Kansas. Like, it's just salaries. Like most of what the U.S. government does is beneficial to people. Now, granted, like obviously, like giving weapons to certain actors and having useless wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Like, yeah, those were bad. Not gonna justify those. However, like most is okay. It is pretty good. Now the thing is, you could say, well, back to the NFL. Like, is the NFL entertaining enough, and does it bring enough joy to people to justify the brain damage that it causes every single one of its players? You know, I don't know. Wait, when did Chris Kristofferson die? Oh my God, that's gonna be. Oh, Chris Kristofferson died like an hour ago. Oh my, it's like two. The news is like 2 hours ago. Oh man, George R. R. Martin is definitely going to be. He's definitely going to mention Chris Kristofferson dying. That's not. Um, the Oh man, that's going to be something. Did he write the Lemon Tree song? I don't think he wrote the Lemon Tree song. I think, and even Peter, Paul, and Mary. That was all. I think that was a cover. Let me see who wrote the original Lemon Tree. Yes. Did Peter, Paul, and Mary write that song? No, it's Will Holt is the original writer. Who is Will Holt? He was just a folk singer. But yeah, you know, back in the day, people used to cover stuff like the next year. Like somebody would come out with something, and then they'd immediately cover it. And it was just something people did. People don't do that very much anymore. The players know the risks going in and get millions for doing it, so it's a fair trade for those involved. Otherwise, they pursue something else. It's only millions of dollars. I don't know if the players really do know the risks. You know, these studies just kind of came out, so you're talking about the new players, maybe, but it's also like, are they really presented with it? But also like, do they get millions? Well, someone who makes it to the NFL, I think the minimum salary is like $300,000 a year. But there's all the people that don't make it. There's all the people that like go through all of this like football up until that point, trying to pursue it. So, but you know, is $300,000 a year? You know, keep in mind a football team is 100 men. So even the players that hardly have any playing time are getting hit and get the brain damage. So because you're in practice and shit like that. But yeah, and you know, how many years are you on the squad? So yeah, you might make $300,000 for you know, 3 or 4 years. Minimum wage NFL is. Oh, never. I mean, I'm going to say that the minimum salary has actually gone up quite a bit. I'm going to correct myself. It used to be $300,000. It's currently $700,000 is the minimum salary. That's much higher than I thought. But how many years do people play? You know, and then, but also like, is that okay? 795? Yeah. That was 2023. I was with 700,000. Gone up to 795 in 2024. Okay. I mean, how many of you are willing to take brain damage for $1 million a year? $795,000 a year. Kristofferson played and lived in college, lived to 88. I mean, living a long life, I don't know if brain damage causes you to live a shorter life. We're not talking about like the length of life. We're talking about the quality of life. You know, when you're just gone and you're walking around. So The average, you're only working like 4 years to get in that salary for 4 years. Now, I think the NFL pension is somewhat generous. The average NFL pension is 43,000, which, you know, they're not gonna be in poverty at 43,000 years, but, you know, come on. With my dad, I'd probably have brain damage. People do a whole lot of work, so I'd be a kicker who never gets hit if I could. First of all, to be a kicker, you got to be like a European soccer player or something, right? Like they never. You also get Taylor Swift. Look, if you can be like one of the best football player, like, you know, and be somewhat good looking, because it's not like Taylor Swift is you know, going after some of the ugly ones. You know, her boyfriend is still like pretty good looking guy, independent of, right? Like, I mean, here he is. Like he's still like a pretty good looking guy, and he's one of the best football players. And you know, they're not just giving it to like random linebacker, you know, random linebacker. Talk shit on Taylor. Why? I mean, I've got no hate for Taylor Swift. What has Taylor Swift ever done to hurt me? Yeah. So lots of concussions in soccer as well. That's true. They do talk about the headers, but I'm not sure if it. You know, I have to see the study. If it causes like lasting brain damage. I've got my problems with international soccer. Don't get me wrong. International soccer is one of also like, you know, there is no more corrupt organization than FIFA, and it's the thing about soccer is the fact that they take all of the little children at a young age and put them in soccer camps with like where you're barely taught to read, and you're in the soccer camp your whole life, and then to try to put it out. But the thing is, like, oh my God, like the capitalism in a sense. Like, have you ever read on like how all those all that K-pop stars, they're all also like put in camps at a young age and like trained, and only like a select few make it. And everybody else, it's like, I put my daughter for her entire childhood into a dance camp, a dance and singing camp, in hopes that she's going to be a K-pop star, and she didn't make it. Like, what do you fucking do with her? We didn't teach her how to read and write. Well, they usually teach her English because the K-pop stars need to know English, so at least there's that. But like, holy shit, like, oh my, yeah. Academy footballers barely get high school education is incredibly depressing. Oh my God, you only need to listen to David Beckham speak for 60 seconds to be like, oh my God, you are like, what happened? What fucking happened? Like, it's amazing. It's amazing. Like, I would take an average linebacker in the NFL, like to like their level of education over David Beckham like any day. He is like so dumb sounding. It's amazing. But yeah, international soccer's got some fucking problems. Yeah, and the little girl's forced into ballet. I mean, even Tiger Woods, like, he was just forced to do soccer all day. Like, at what point, like, you know, can you just be like, my God, what are you doing to these children? Yeah, the K-pop industry is just, it's disgusting. Like, you know, for some reason I was down a YouTube rabbit hole, and I heard like Blackpink like in an interview, and they're like, well, how'd you get together as a group? And they were like, yeah, we were all at like a camp, like since the age of like 9, like to learning how to sing and dance. And they're like, oh, and where'd you learn your English? And they're like, at the camp. like Yeah, American football players do have to go and pass college. I mean, I will say that like as screwed up as the American sports system is, and I do hate it when they let all of the jocks like pass and stuff like that. But at least getting them to the point where they have a degree and can like function in society if they fail at football, and nearly all of them do fail. Um, you want to at least get them to that point. I think it's crap if they don't do that for them, like they don't give them the safety net. But I loved gymnastics camp as a kid. But I mean, I think there's camp, like it's summer and you're going like for a couple weeks during the summertime or something. And then there's like this is your job. You like wake up every day for years and you do nothing else but gymnastics. That's fucking crazy. Um, yeah, the K-pop sounds like child soldiers. Oh, it is. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Yeah, that's the thing is they have to pass college. I think it's a disservice when they pass them, unless they're super good and they're actually going to make it. Yeah, you shouldn't pass anybody. You shouldn't pass anybody that's not absolutely 100% the best. Everybody else that has a chance of failing. The thing is like people also have a chance of getting injured too, and then you're done. So really, you should not pass anybody unless they really need to pass. Mm. So, yeah, some people, new blog post recapping George R. R. Martin on what George R. R. Martin did last summer. What George R. R. Martin did last summer. I know what you did last summer. You went to the UK and had a great time with your wife, touring around and having fun. So people are making a big deal out of a few things on here. Oh, but I'm waiting for his Kristofferson post that he's gonna have. All right, let's see here. Let's talk about George's blog post. Fine, let's do it. Not a blog. Okay, so it's under this premise of like here comes Hodor, because he's promoting the actor that played Hodor in his book and his biography here. But he then kind of goes in there and he says, "Here comes Hodor. I promised you all a report on our trip." I'm not going to read very far because he starts talking about Hodor eventually, and I'll stop at that point. "I haven't forgotten. We left Santa Fe on July 15th and returned home on August 15th. In between, we visited Belfast in Northern Ireland and Ashford Meadow and the Reach, Amsterdam, London, Oxford, Glasgow, where the World Science Fiction Convention was being held. It was a splendid trip, and one did wonders to restore my bruised and battered spirits and relieve some of the stress that I'd been under before we left." Now, this is the question we have to ask: like, what's causing his stress and bruised and battered spirits, and what is relieving it? The first few months of 2024 had been, well, no fun, let's say. January, February, March, things just kept getting worse until we came to April Fool's Day, when it finally dawned on me that I was the fool and had been for years. But I do not want to talk about that now, or maybe ever. We shall see. So, but never mind about that. I want to talk about our travels. Okay, so, and then he starts talking about his great 80-minute speech. Carmen and I already talked about this speech and things he did, like Tolkien's grave and the legacy and stuff like that. But supposedly there was a recording of it, but it got lost. So, what to make of this? What to? I mean, you kind of say, okay, was he stressed out about House of the Dragon and it not going the way he wanted, and then when he went to the UK and he saw the Duncan egg, set and everything, that he felt better, you know? Um, or I don't know, is he stressed out about people dying in his life and stuff like that, and he goes to UK and he just has a really great time, and that's the thing. Is it has nothing to do with the show or not? But you know, I don't think it's I'm blowing raspberries of contempt. I don't know. I mean, I don't have contempt, like, but what I think is, um, it's not contempt. Okay, you know, I am completely at peace with the idea that George R. R. Martin is not is never going to finish The Winds of Winter, and he's enjoying himself, and he like, that's fine. Like, that is fine. Um, I think the contempt is um it's a kind of a self-contempt. It's a self-contempt of like me and the community, and how we like are so desperate still on some level for The Winds of Winter, that we analyze his words and try to squeeze hope out of something, like as if he's like, oh, wait, maybe he's turned a new leaf and he realizes that something's wrong, and he's now going to sit down and start writing. And I know that's not the case. Like, but there's still some piece of me that's like, maybe he's gonna do that. But it's just not that. Oh my God, like these fuckers, dude. Like these just absolute assholes. Like, is it really that? Like, Carmine is such a fucking stickler for sound quality. Like, there are times where we've done podcasts, and he's like, sound quality was no good, man. We can't post it. I'm like, oh my God, like, Jesus, no one fucking look. I'm gonna put this on. I don't think it's going to change the situation. The situation is I'm in an empty room with like without proper like foam on the walls, like I am in other situations. And look, let's put this on, asshole. Okay, look. Did that even give me? Come on. Look, does anyone hear anything here? It doesn't even. Also, like, I can't eliminate any echo because there's no sound coming from my computer right now. Like, it's just me talking, and that's going to be the echo. Like, the headphones would only be the case if Carmine had called in and there was sound coming from my computer. Oh, now he's going to call it. All right, dude, what's going on?
It wasn't even me. It was Trey. Trey wants you to have it on. Trey wants you to, not me. It's Trey.
Oh, really? Trey, the nicest motherfucker in the world explainer, is saying something negative. Really? I'm
negative.
Supposed to fucking believe that?
Oh, it's Trey. It's Trey, not me. It's Trey.
Am I supposed to believe that Trey the explainer said something mean and negative?
That's not mean. You freaking stop.
Never. I do not believe it. I do not believe it. He is incapable of saying anything that is mean. That's his power, because when he finally decides to be mean, it's just like he can brutalize and devastate someone. Carmine, have you ever heard of an X-Men comic called, I want to say it's like the worst X-Men ever or something?
No.
They're the worst X-Men ever. Yeah, the worst X-Men ever is a story about a kid whose mutant power is that he can explode into a massive bomb.
Jesus.
And that's it. Like, he's dead. Like, he is that's his one power. That's his mutant power. So he can never use it. And so he's enrolled at I don't know how they discovered he'd be a mutant or why he's like enrolled at Xavier's school, but like obviously he's just this like character, and he's a horrible X-Men, and everyone makes fun of him all the time. And I want to, and obviously it's a Chekhov's gun because the entire story goes, and then at the end of the story, he of course is just like finally just like he finds a reason that there's someone he needs to defeat, and he activates himself and he blows up and he like saves the day. But it's like the dumbest. It's the dumbest. But anyway, that's like Trey the Explainer's like power, because when he is finally mean to someone, it's going to fucking devastate them. What's going on, Carmine?
Nothing. I will tomorrow. I'll upload that Battlestar pod we did and a couple other things about George and whatever the fuck. Because man, it's getting ridiculous. It's getting ridiculous. We need that wins, bro. We need that wins. Because you were talking about how on his blog he mentioned Bubonicon, which we covered. We went into it. Someone who attended gave me the rundown of what George talked about. And at Bubonicon, he talked about his legacy and how he visited Tolkien's grave and how fans leave letters and shit. And what are we going to leave at George's grave? Chicken wings? Like, what are we leaving at George's grave when it happens? Like a picture of the Shay actress? Like, what's going on that right there? Ranch on the side? What are we doing? So... like
yeah,
Blu-ray's The House of the Dragon season 2. What's going on George's grave? I don't know.
Well, I mean, do people leave anything at Glenn Larson's grave?
Maybe. Like, have you visited Glenn Larson? I don't know. Maybe.
Glenn Larson created Battlestar Galactica.
The original, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, probably not. No. Where's he buried?
Right. It takes a lot to be. It takes a lot to be really remembered and have people like leave stuff at your grave. Okay, it takes a lot. So I don't know. Like to have your aspirations to be like Tolkien. Maybe you're setting yourself up a little. Maybe you're setting your sights a little high. It's hard because it gets harder and harder. Like I get it. If George R. R. Martin lived 100 years ago, that'd be different. It gets harder and harder to make your mark and be remembered. Yeah, same as Edgar Allan Poe. Like people love Edgar Allan Poe. Like fucking people are gonna remember Edgar Allan Poe forever. However, is Edgar Allan Poe really that great? If you were born today, no one would fucking care about Edgar Allan Poe. But man, us Baltimoreans, man, I went to a wedding once at the cathedral where Edgar Allan Poe's grave is. Like, by the way, so it's a, leave a copy of Elden Ring. Vulcan memorabilia. Yeah. Trying to think. Leave a lemon. Have a lemon tree. Oh, so Carmine, you were asking me about if I did any work or watched anything on the plane. I did watch something on the plane.
Uh-oh.
I watched
Penguin? Agatha?
No, I watched Furiosa.
Ooh, how was that? It's on. I have it downloaded. I haven't watched it yet. How is it?
It's surprisingly good. I expected it to be horrible, so my expectations were really low. It is a mixed bag on its special effects. You go from one moment where you're like, oh my God, this is visually the best thing I've ever fucking seen in my life, to the next second being like, oh my God, that looks so fake. To the next second being like, oh my God, this is the most fucking incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. And then to the next moment being like, oh my God, that looks fake. And you also like go from like moment to moment being like, oh, this is such a fucking great movie. This is such a great performance, to being like, what the fuck are they doing there? You know. So, but still, I think it's fuck. I do not think it's Fury Road. Like, no way is it as good as Fury Road, but it's definitely worth a watch. It's definitely super interesting. It definitely like keeps your attention for being such a long movie. And I bring it up only because the ending involves a tree, and it's kind of a very interesting kind of ending, a very memorable ending. And I don't want to spoil it for you, but like, I don't know. It was boring. I think there were parts of Furiosa that can drag a little bit, but then there are parts where I'm just blown away, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is fucking like insanely incredible. And so it's a very like, you know, it's bold and it's interesting, and so for that, like, I'd say it's a good movie. It's a good movie. So I recommend that you watch it. I do recommend that you watch it. Like, and I don't recommend that many movies. Like, most movies, I'm like, take it or leave it. But Furiosa, I do think everyone should watch it. I think the movie probably would have been a lot better if it wasn't Chris Hemsworth as the villain, because he's just too famous and too weird and comical, and his prosthetic looks odd. And if it were anybody else, he probably would have been more compelling. But I understand that, like, they needed to cast a star in order to pull in an audience, because everyone else in the movie is a nobody. What to do with the YouTube channels when George passes? Look, man, YouTube channels shift. YouTube channels change topics all the time. You know, like, you know, for instance, like Quinn's YouTube channel was all ice and fire, and now it's whatever Quinn wants to talk about. A lot of people shift. I mean, Mr. Beast, I think he was a Let's Play gamer. A lot of people just shift things around. So, this. Burritos, chicken wings, picture of Shay's. This is why you aren't talking to Carmine. You're writing banger comments. Is this it?
So we leave it on his grave. It's burritos. The Iron Fleet, the Game of Thrones cookbook. I'm taking all. I'll bring all of this. I got you. Get like miniatures of the Iron Fleets, little ships. Sleep. The dude whose job is to clean this at the fucking grave. Oh fuck.
Dune, Lord of the Rings, politics, Sanderson, whatever people want, whatever I'm interested in, you know, whatever.
This guy wants you to do Westworld season 4, bro. Like,
that's a joke. Like, I'll do Westworld season 4 when somebody watches Westworld season 4.
Oh shit.
Also, the fact that like Westworld season 4 ends with like this promising like see you in the last season, Westworld season 5, one more season, let's do this. Like, that's how it ends. I'm like, yep.
Hey, can we talk about this real quick? Because I fucking put a tweet out about it. How the fuck can HBO tell us with a straight face they didn't have enough budget for 2 more episodes of season 2, and then at the same time say Velma Halloween special coming? Like, that's where the budget is going, to crap like that. Who the fuck is watching Velma?
So I can tell you that like Velma, despite being this is why like money talks, and everything, like, this is the only thing they care about. Okay, Velma, despite being horrible and universally hated by everybody, there was enough buzz from all of the negative press that people watched it. And animation is pretty cheap. And so they're like, fuck, I guess we can do a season 2 and have it be profitable. That was it. Like, that's how that, like, it's all about, like, do people tune in or not? Like, that's the only thing.
I'd actually like to know the numbers on that, because I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. I want to see the numbers on this. I really, truly do. If anyone came back for this, otherwise, Maybe the grifters are right this time. Maybe there is some kind of weird HBO agenda because Velma is just awful, absolutely awful. I tried watching it as a fan of Scooby-Doo from way back when. It's just so bad. It's not even worth.
Yeah. No, I mean,
work on it.
It's just one of those shows that like no matter what, it's like it didn't like it was not, it was people, some people were complaining that it was just like politically off, but it was more that it just wasn't original or funny stuff. Like making fun of Scooby-Doo has been done so much, and like claiming that Scooby-Doo was somehow conservative when at the time Scooby-Doo was a complete like we're sticking it to the man kind of like cartoon. And the fact that like later it's seen as like, oh, this is like traditional, this is your traditional daddy, like parents, like old man kind of cartoon. Like how a bunch of stoners riding around in a van, like chasing ghosts is somehow conservative. But it had already been done at that point. Like Scooby-Doo had already made fun of itself at that point. Do you remember a pup named Scooby-Doo?
Yes, and I think one of the is a pup named Scooby-Doo the one where they're all kids?
Yeah.
I love the joke where it's like, I know who did this. It's red herring.
A pup named Scooby-Doo was already making fun of like Scooby-Doo, like through and through for like, and that was when I was a kid. So like it already, like they'd already recognized that their formula was well, I mean, but when they added Scrappy-Doo, they understood their formula was already done. But like, you know, they kept changing the formula, and I think and then didn't they make? I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, no, I think they didn't make Velma a lesbian, but they made Velma. Oh, in the movie they made Velma. Didn't they make Velma a lesbian? But the Scooby-Doo movie was already making fun of Scooby-Doo. And then like Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Or What's New Scooby-Doo? Like already like pushed boundaries on who the Scooby Gang was.
You know a lot of like, Scooby-Doo shows. How do you know all these shows?
You're just fucking late to the party making fun of Scooby-Doo in the year 2022.
Preston, how do you know all these Scooby-Doo shows? You know so many of them. Because those are all new shows. How do you know all this?
What's that?
You know all these new Scooby-Doo shows. How do you know all these names?
I mean, what? You think I live under a rock? You think I don't know about fucking Scooby-Doo, motherfucker?
These are all new. Fuck. By the way.
Favorite Scooby-Doo guest star got to be Don Knotts. Got to be Phyllis Diller, man. Phyllis Diller's
Don Knotts? Phyllis Diller? When was this? Phyllis Diller. I know about the Globetrotters. I don't know about the... Don Knotts was on Scooby-Doo? No.
So,
really?
Okay, when Scooby-Doo very quickly was running through like its premise, like the whole Ghost of the Week thing got tired fast. So then they started doing like Celebrity of the Week, and they would throw in a celebrity, but it's like celebrities from the late 70s. And so you just get a lot of fucking Phyllis Diller, Scooby-Doo. Yeah, man. Like Scooby-Doo. We're gonna do. There, the Phyllis Diller from Scooby-Doo. Come on, man.
Holy shit. I guess. You're out of your mind. Okay, so all right. I have to ask you this now. Have you watched Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power since we watched it a couple weeks ago?
No, I mean, I finished the show. I watched it all. I have my opinions on Rings of Power.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did you go back and rewatch it?
I'm not. What do you think? I'm made of time? What do you...
I went back and rewatched episode 7. Initially, I liked it, but on the rewatch...
Look, man. Rings of Power. I mean, I haven't done a House of the Dragon rewatch either. I mean, but Rings of Power season 2. Look, Sauron is super interesting. And he kind of stole the show. I think I think the plot that was the best was Uncle Benjamin's body double. Uncle Benjamin's body double was like pretty
Adar?
good. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he was great. He was super interesting. And then I think that it's too bad that my favorite plot line from the first like the first season, which you know which plot line like I love the most.
The MILF?
The MILF's plot line was the best one, and then she leaves the show, and they decide to kill her off screen, and she had the best story from the first season, like
She should have been Sauron, bro. That would have been like, whoa, what?
oh,
The entire
that
time.
yeah.
Been so
Right.
good.
But
It's
like
so
the,
annoying.
like the thing of like if the stranger were Saruman and the dark wizard was
Gandalf, that would have been
Gandalf, that would have been fucking great
sick.
too. But
That would have been sick. No.
no.
That would have been sick. Fuck. So good.
Like as I say, Black Elf and the MILF was the best story from season 1, and you can't do Black Elf and the MILF without the MILF. Okay, so it's what can you do? Hey Preston, you watching Penguin? Carmine is trying to get me to watch it because he fucking loves it. He thinks it's fucking incredible.
What? Okay, I think it's good. People are saying like this is like Tony Soprano. No, he's such. Well, I can see why they would say that because Penguin is definitely from North Jersey. That Jesus Christ, but like he's not Tony. But fuck, he's such a snake. But you love it. You almost don't want to root for him because he's such a garbage person. But he's such a character that it's so entertaining. I highly recommend.
Did you
people
watch
check out
Gotham?
the first. I did, yeah. Actually, I really liked Gotham the first
The guy
season.
who did Penguin and Gotham was like stole the show too.
Oh yeah, he was great. Him and the Riddler. Riddler was great.
Yeah. So, I mean, Carmine's enjoying Penguin. He thinks it's really fucking good. That's what he told me off screen. He's not willing to commit to certain positions on screen, but he's
what?
He gives you positions.
What is that? What has that ever been true?
But this is what you told me. Okay, Carmine called. He calls me and he's like, oh dude, you got to watch the Penguin. It's really good. Except, and I'm like, what? And he's like, it's so good, but at any moment, like I keep in the back of my head, I'm just like, this is also a universe where a dude is running around in a bat costume, like kicking everybody's butt. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
no. So real legit. This is my fear the entire time because there's a moment where the Penguin is having a really good scene with the fuck. I don't know her name. The really good looking woman from How I Met Your Mother. The mother, Kristen, Italian sounding name, whatever. And it's a really good scene. And I'm like, damn, this is so good. And right in the back of my head, I'm like, oh fuck, if Batman shows up, it'll ruin the whole scene. That'll be so stupid. It'll be so annoying that a crazy man in a bat costume is fighting these people. No, please don't show up. Just let this play out. Let this play out, please. Yeah.
It is true that the actress that played the MILF left acting to focus more on activism. I forgot her name because she's not a huge actress. I think she was in an episode of How I Met Your Mother, but I'll bring up her name real quick. I think it's it's Nazanin Bonaidi. And she left to do more activism, but which is too bad because, like I said, she was hands down the best part of season 1. Her role, her story of oh well.
Batman disrupting their shit off screen. Yes, he is. The person on the chat Batman is disrupting their shit off screen. Yeah, he probably is, but like I
He
don't
needs
want
to
Batman
remain
to
off
show up.
screen. Like, you know,
Please.
if he was just like this element that you never like, kind of like, you know, Jaws. Like the less you see him, the scarier he is. Like they should do it where like they keep talking about the Batman and the Batman keeps doing stuff, but they never show the Batman. Yeah. Thoughts on Thunderbolts. I'm pretty super chats are off this stream. There's no super chats this stream. So people are like, where's the super chats? Yeah, there's no super chats this stream. This is a free stream. I earn no money from talking to you guys. Okay. So the thoughts on Thunderbolts. Did you see the Thunderbolts trailer?
I did. I thought it looked pretty cool.
It does look pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
I think like what I kind of liked about it is because it's a bunch of like the B team. You know, I almost feel like I wonder if it's going to be better because they're not going to be like shoving fan service in. Like if it's a bunch of characters that no one really cares about that much, hopefully they're going to be free to do a good story. Maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
I will see what happens. Look, Marvel needs a win right now. They got Deadpool, and I like Deadpool, but they need some more wins before we get to Fantastic Four. I don't even know what's coming out next after Deadpool. Do you know?
I think it's Thunderbolts next, and
Is it Thunderbolts next? Let me see.
It's May of 2025.
Wow, they really cut back. Used to be like a different Marvel movie every like month.
Captain America 4 is supposed to be. Captain America: Brave New World is also supposed to be in the pipeline, and trying to remember.
It's Captain America 4. That's February. Wow, we're gonna go almost a whole. We're half a year without a Marvel anything. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah, somewhere, you know, I'm really hoping Thunderbolts is good with the it looks in the trailer they really stressed the father-daughter relationship, which is probably the best part of Black Widow, right? Like so that was pretty fun. So I think that's, you know, in it. So Marvel, no fan service. Are you serious? Fair enough. Has anyone watched Agatha? I watched the first half of the first episode. It seemed intriguing, but I've been watching with my wife, and we both got. It's hard for us to. We're both busy, so Carmine's been watching it. He thinks it's okay.
It's fine. Honestly, it's not for me. Clearly, I'm not in the target demographic, and that's okay. I probably won't want to do like a thing on it. But the one thing I was curious about is whether or not Agatha can really hold a series on her own as the main character, because she was great as like a side character / villain in WandaVision, but taking center stage on the spotlight, it seems
But this is what I've learned, man. This is what I've learned is take something like Andor, okay?
Right.
You don't need to make a great story. You don't need you don't need Iron Man. Okay. A great story can be anybody, right? And a great story can be anybody if it's written well. Anything from PC people like they want to go into like, what's the secret formula again of like a great piece of art? And they're like, oh, well, a great piece of art is not going to be like too political. Not true. There's plenty of great art that's super political. Oh, a great art can't be too conservative or can't be too liberal. There's great art that's super conservative, and there's great art that's super liberal. You can't have great art, you know, if it's got too many stars. Not true. There's plenty of great art that has too many stars. You can't have great art if there's nobody, if people don't know anybody. No, that's not true either. A good story can be a good fucking story. There's no secret sauce for it. It's just people sitting down, hammering it out, and putting good direction, good editing, and having it all come together. Like that's all. Like there's nothing else to it. Like there's nothing else that you can really put in the formula. I know all these like execs are trying to figure it out. All these executives are like trying to figure out what does this need to pull in more dollars. And maybe they have a few things that'll pull in more dollars, but I guarantee no one has the formula for like making good art. It's just, it's just the creator or creators sitting down, taking time, and really like, and sometimes being lucky, So I think that it's fine. It's fine to have nobody. Like Andor is a fucking nobody, and that's a fucking great show. As I would say, like, you don't need to have like Marvel cameos. You don't need to have somebody just showing up in the middle to dazzle everybody. It just has to be fucking good art. In fact,
one thing they're leaning
Carmine,
on is
what would you say is the worst aspect of Andor?
That it ended. I wanted that bitch to go on.
Close, but what was the dumbest scene of Andor then? The one that like didn't fit.
Honestly, I can't think. Everything was so good. I can't think of
the after credits scene.
Oh, the Death Star thing?
Yeah.
Really?
It wasn't in the same. It wasn't in the same like vibe or feeling. Like to suddenly be like, oh, he was building the Death Star shield the entire time. It just didn't fit with like the feel of Andor to me.
I guess, but as for Agatha, they're also leaning into like, oh, who's this person? Ooh, who's Audrey Plaza? Ooh, is Mephisto behind this? It's basically like all the theories from WandaVision are coming back here and making it like really interesting. So,
yeah. Andor Calrissian. I think his name is Cassian Andor. Cassian? Not Lando Calrissian.
I will say the one thing they dropped very quickly in Andor, wasn't he searching for his sister and then that kind of went nowhere?
You're right.
I wonder if that's going to be brought back up.
It's not even part of his backstory, right? I mean, I remember him mentioning it at some point that he had a sister.
Yeah, that's the whole reason why he's at that strip club in the first episode, is because he's looking for his sister who may be working there, and then he runs into the cops, and then he encounters the nerdy guy who's like super hyped about justice, and then with the nerdy guy and his boss, possibly the best character in the entire Star Wars, Yoan Royce guy, knows when to keep his head down, not looking for trouble.
Let's see. Disagree about Andor post-credit scene. The fact that the machine of oppression is being built even as rebellion simmers is profound. Who's joining? It is Trey. Hello.
Hi. How you doing?
Let me get you a screen.
You need to make Trey a mod so he can ban people who.
I think he's a mod.
Oh, he is. Are you a mod? Trey, say something in the stream chat so I can see a little.
Let me see here. Let me find it. Hello. Here, I'll just type hello. Oh yeah, look, I got the little symbol.
There you go. Ban him, Trey.
Now Chris, who hated my laugh last episode. I can pay.
I mean, I don't mind. Here's the thing on the Andor thing. I don't mind that he was working on the dish. I don't mind that he was working on the Death Star. I just thought that the scene where they show it was just a little too like, I don't know, revealing and obvious. I think maybe had it been more subtle, or somebody just kind of mentioned it or something, it would have been better.
You're talking about Andor?
Yeah, we're talking about whatever. The conversation's just kind of flowing wherever. It's funny. It's funny though, because There's no super chats tonight. Like weirdly, we haven't been talking about Ice and Fire that much.
Did you this is kind of Ice and Fire related. Did you see that Kristofferson died?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're waiting for the. I mean, I'm sure
The
it'll
George
come in the next
post.
day. Like George will post
Yeah,
something probably on Chris Kristofferson dying. But
because he had a character named Kristofferson, right? He had in Night Flyers,
yes,
who's like an
so
asshole. He's like a huge asshole.
in Night Flyers, he wrote Night Flyers kind of twice. So he had a shorter version of Night Flyers where he didn't name anybody, and he just called them by their profession. And then
Hmm.
later, when he wanted to expand it and like pad it out, he like gave them all names. And so Kristofferson was one of the was one of the characters' names eventually. So it's kind of interesting to write a story specifically without naming people and then later to name everybody.
Yeah, I've only read the expanded version. Is the cut version, is it any different? Is it better? Is it worse?
No, the expanded version is definitely better. Like, don't get me
Okay.
wrong. Like, actually, there's more characterization for all of them, but you're still like, but there's more spinning wheels now because now you're getting to know like, how like the story is. You have this promise of finding out who the Vulcan is, and then it weirdly is a horror story where you're killing off the characters one by one, as I call it, the 10 Little Indian like horror story.
Mm.
And then he by expanding it and characterization, like it becomes more that like that horror story where you, like a horror story doesn't mean anything if you're killing off like randos. You've got to get you have to have an establishing scene. You have to show that like the jock and the cheerleader are having sex and therefore
Right.
they're bad, and then Jason kills them. If they're just two people, like it doesn't and he kills them, like who cares? So
Yeah.
it becomes better horror in the sense that you're actually like establishing who the victims are. But the Vulcan story doesn't change at all. Like it's just there. So all he does is he pads in, the characters. But didn't we talk about Night Flyers and how like neither of us really think it's one of his best, and yet it's like such an important story?
It's like apparently like it's the only other story people know of him. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, Night Flyers isn't that good. It's okay. It's got good
What do you mean?
ideas in
Nobody knows him for the jerking off story, Meat House Man? Nobody knows him for that?
it.
That's a shame.
Nobody-
That's his
No,
best.
I mean people that know George R. R. Martin like do of course get to Meat House Man pretty fast on the list, and then are like blown away by it because it's so fucking unusual. Meat House Man. But it's like Night Flyers, like it's not a great story, but it's also like we wouldn't have Ice and Fire if it weren't for Night Flyers. Like we
Right.
wouldn't have all of these things because he made a certain amount of money off of Night Flyers in order to keep functioning as a writer. And like had he not done it, had that story not been picked up, and had it not been made into a crappy movie with Uncle Phil, we wouldn't have had any of this. Like,
Who?
it's very
Okay,
important. Yeah.
I know that Night Flyers is weird, where like another studio owns it, but like who owns the other short stories? Like who owns like Tough Voyaging and stuff, like the rights to
HBO owns
adapt
Tough
them?
Voyaging.
So they could make one if they wanted to, but
Yeah. So
they're
HBO,
broke.
their deal with George R. R. Martin is they bought his entire library that he still had
Wow.
rights to for adaptation. Like
Huh.
everything. So they didn't just buy A Song of Ice and Fire. They bought all George R. R. Martin.
Wow.
And so they have the rights to adapt everything by him, with the
I
exception of
guess
things that he sold before, which happened to be Night Flyers.
Yeah, that's
I
what
guess
HBO
it's
wants
like
to do. They're
I
hemorrhaging money
watched
and they
a
want to put this out.
I watched a video on like the Rings of Power and what they're allowed to adapt versus not allowed to adapt. Like Amazon only has the rights to like the
Lord of the
Lord of the
Rings.
Rings and the
Yeah.
Hobbit, and they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion. So they can only reference things that are referenced
In
in
the
those
appendix,
books.
right?
That is so stupid.
But just
So like they'll
think
use
about
different
that
words.
in like, imagine if you had the rights to Game of Thrones, but a Game of Thrones, but you didn't have the right to Fire and Blood, like, and you had to do the Dance of the Dragons, you literally couldn't do the Dance of the Dragons with the half brother, half sister thing. You would have to make them full siblings a year apart, right? Like, because like the appendices says one thing in one book.
That is so fun. I never thought of them.
These little things like that, because I think there are, there must be some things like that where they can expand. But I also wonder about so a lot of people say like, oh God, the Rings of Power show is deviating from the source material. It's deviating from the Silmarillion. But at the same time, I feel like they can't even approach the Silmarillion because that would be a copyright violation.
Right.
So they have to divert into a different direction. So like Superman, for example, goes into public domain in about 10 years. Right?
I think so. Yeah, it's very soon.
Superman. Public domain.
2034.
10 years. 2034.
Oh my god!
But here's the thing: Kryptonite is not in the public domain yet. So like Kryptonite doesn't enter as a plot point for let's say another decade. I don't want to look it up or find it, but nonetheless, like this really important aspect to the Superman story, Kryptonite, does not enter the public domain for another 10 years. So say it's 2034 and you want to do a Superman story. It cannot involve Kryptonite. So now you have to have a weakness for Superman. So you have to invent something else.
Or it can't have him flying, because I don't think him flying comes until later on.
Yeah, and it doesn't have doesn't have Lex Luthor or
right.
I don't know. Yeah,
so
any
all
of those
these things so say you have to invent a villain and you have to invent a weakness for him, and you invent the story. Everybody would complain. They'd be like, "But I don't understand. It's not Lex Luthor and it's not Kryptonite." And so the same thing is kind of happening with Rings of Power. Like they literally cannot do the things that are in the Silmarillion because that would be a copyright violation. But man.
Who owns the Silmarillion stuff? Who's like, I own the rights.
I think the Tolkien estate still like.
The Tolkien estate is holding on to it. When they run out of money, then they'll sell that. They're holding on to as much as they can for as.
You're probably right, Carmen, because they were released at later dates.
Tolkien milk.
Because I remember there being an interview with Peter Jackson in the mid-2000s where he said he wanted to do The Hobbit, but the Tolkien estate wasn't willing to budge on that. And then later on, they were, because what do they really do? Does Tolkien's family have jobs? Probably not. They probably just go off and jerk off and do art projects, whatever the fuck. So when they run out of money, then they're like, you know what? Let's take a little bit off and feed whatever we can. But the interesting thing about that is that they actually kind of care about what's adapted. So people keep saying that like Amazon spent the most amount of money on the franchise. That's actually not true. Netflix did. Netflix offered $250 million, but they wanted to do like a Gandalf standalone movie or an Aragorn drama. And the Tolkien estate apparently did not like that, and they rejected that. They actually went with Amazon, who bid much lower than $250 million. So... HBO lost, by the way. HBO wanted to redo the trilogy. That's why they lost.
Have you ever seen this picture of the Tolkien estate?
Let me see. Shut the fuck up. Get the fuck out of here.
Look at Preston. Preston's so proud of that.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, it's all like the Morton Joe sons. It's like the Rictus Erectus and stuff.
But the funny thing is that everyone keeps thinking like Amazon bid the most amount of money. No, bro, they did not. It was Netflix, and Netflix had a bad idea. HBO, I'm so upset for whoever's idea was it to redo the trilogy. That person needs to be flung into the sun. You're so dumb. Why would you do that? Why would you want to read? Why? It's so dumb. Amazon got it because they had the least shitty idea. So.
Yeah, I saw a bunch of nerds complaining about...
I don't know if the Silmarillion is any good. I don't like it. Some people love it, but I do not like it. But then again, I also I do not like Fire and Blood. And everyone's like, but I like it. It's not bad. It's like, I don't think it's good.
I saw who was the woman that you had on as a guest one time who's reading the Song of Ice and Fire for
Bookborn.
the first time.
Hmm.
Bookborn, like she apparently read Fire and Blood and really loved it. Like
Yeah,
she said,
I haven't watched her
yeah,
video yet, but yeah, she apparently really loved it. So
Please
yeah.
have her back on and correct her.
I'm interested.
no, I mean, you have the right to like things that I don't like.
So,
I mean,
Bookborn, you
it's
like Fire and
fine.
Blood. Here's why you're wrong. First off, did you notice these inconsistencies? Well, no? Well, now you do.
That's my plan.
Did you note? Preston would be like, "Do you notice the Kingmaker stuff?" The King.
You notice? I mean, aren't you a little angry about the Kristen Cole stuff? I mean, let me bring you back to Sir Ares Oakheart.
Tyrion was completely wrong about like who the dragon killed. Did you notice that? No. Well, now you do.
Oh, damn. it took me completely out of it. Yeah, the later parts of the Silmarillion are good. You know, that may be a big part of it is that I think it's like I'm so like you're just trudging through the beginning, and so I think by the end I'm just exhausted. I'm just like I'm just gonna try to finish this, but I just didn't like how it began.
I had trouble like getting attached to these like god-like characters who they don't act like mortal beings and stuff, and it's a little too like abstract for me, I guess. Like it's the Silmarillion where it's like, yes, the smith made these people out of clay and stuff. You're like, yeah.
Depressingly, the worst parts of Fire and Blood are the parts plainly written by George R. Martin. Endless wedding feast descriptions. Sometime I want to talk about. I mean, I kind of want to do an analysis of. So remember, Trey, I had you on and I brought up this chart here. Hold on a second. I brought up this. And
oh yes, this blew my mind.
Yeah, I really need to do an analysis of this because I also want to like get into the content because I do like in kind of like a brief anecdotal sense. Like I do feel like the pink. By the way, people watching, this is the green. What's highlighted in green are chapters left over from A Feast for Crows, and what is highlighted in pink is material that George wrote in the last 14 months before Dance publication, when he just went on this like burst. So essentially, when you're thinking about Dance is 1/3 left over from Feast, 1/3 written in that last little more than a year, but about a year period where he just like went fucking nuts.
I didn't realize that it was that short a time that he wrote all that in just 14 months. That's insane. That's insane.
Then the last third is like just the creep period of just suffering for 5 years and like just eking out the rest. But like the eke stuff, I also feel like if you look at the chapters, they also seem to be like the most slow world building, long descriptions of stuff. Like, and maybe I'm just thinking because my least favorite chapter is Tyrion 6, and that's just him like arriving in Volantis and like fuck, like what are we doing here? Just these beautiful descriptions of Volantis that are so fucking unnecessary. They go on and on and on.
Or the final Dany chapter, I see that on there too, where it's just a long, just not much going on, and people tried to like make their interpretation of yes, the red ants symbolize the Lannisters or something, and it's like
you're like nothing. Are they the others climbing over the wall, or like what is it? The ice spiders climbing over the wall. It's like
I see Reek. Where is the first Reek is included in there too? Because the first Reek, I didn't know the first Reek chapter even existed. Because when I first read Dance, it was as an audiobook, and the audiobook just doesn't read the Reek 1 chapter. So when I went back, because there's a Reek 1, and it's just completely cut. He skips over Reek 1, and then the What's
Entered the
the
story at Reek 2, and it was no difference.
It was no difference. I didn't even notice it. I didn't even notice that there was something cut.
Because Reek 2 is Moat Kalen, right?
Yes, Reek 2 is Moat Kalen. Reek 1 is just him in the Dreadfort, right?
Pulled out in front of like Crow's Food and or maybe it's Hother. It's like Karstark and it's Karstark and Hother Umber, or maybe
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's definitely Hoth, like the guy with the humpback. What is it?
Yeah.
Like the one that Stannis captures is that guy. But yeah, it was like it didn't include it, and I never noticed until like 5 years later when I decided to read the actual text, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy."
That's amazing.
Yeah, that, and then the second John Con, the Griffin Reborn chapter is cut for some reason. So like I didn't know what fans were talking about with the Griffin Reborn, which is like that one's like you can notice that's missing. You're like,
yeah,
what the heck? Why would you cut that? I don't know why they cut that, just for time or something. I don't know. Roy Dotrice was dying into that microphone. He's like, no more.
I mean, there's definitely a Roy Dotrice quality drop for dance compared to the previous ones. But
oh gosh,
he's really. Oh my god.
You know, that's the one thing they haven't done yet, right? Because they've re-released the book so many times. The one thing they haven't done is re-release the audiobooks.
Yeah,
that's the next bullshit. That's the next thing. So
get the Davos actor or something. Get the Stannis actor. Get him. Yeah, why not?
Or who's the dude that plays Viserys? I always forget his name. He's
Harry
great.
Lloyd, because he does the Dunkin' Egg.
He did a really good job. And I have to say, I listened to Dying of the Light is read by Ian Glenn, and he does
a good job. Yeah.
But you know, he can't necessarily do as many voices. I think Harry Lloyd does a pretty good job at doing lots of voices.
Yeah.
And so that's why he's really good. But Ian Glenn can't do the voices, but he has a great reading voice.
Ian Glenn reading up like Harangans or something is like the funniest shit. Where he's like the Harangan minds, and you hear it in his like Jorah voice. You're like, yes. Sorry, I sidetracked you with this chart.
No, but it's just it's just the idea. But we're talking about like when he chooses to do like food descriptions and stuff like that. Is he trying to kill time?
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know. Like for instance, John. Which John is the one where he goes into the ice cells? Is that John 4?
Oh God, John.
Because that's all food descriptions.
Ice cells, dance. Let's see. I think it's 39. Which one is that? John 8.
Oh, it's that late.
I think so. Let's see. No, maybe not. I just looked up ice cells. No, it's not.
With
the keys.
The keys, yeah. Because
Molestown descends the wall. No. Nope, that's not it. It might be 5.
Maybe it's 5.
Yeah, wait. There's so many damn John chapters.
I know.
Oh no, it's John 4. It's John 4. I just found it. Yeah, he's inspecting the stores.
Inspecting the storage cells. I will say that on this list, I included John 4 and 5, but John 4 and 5, I think, are heavily edited after this anyway, too. That like there's some argument to whether or not like they were left over from Feast, or they were just kind of in pieces, and I just kind of included them. But it makes sense because there's a big plot change. Like once Stannis leaves the wall, you know, what do you do with John, right? And so it's you can see it's just, yeah. So but yeah, the food descriptions. I'm trying to think who else had where else there's good food descriptions.
You were reading
cannibalizing stuff.
You were reading like Game of Thrones. Like I was watching your reread, and there's like a random food description that like it really stands out. I never noticed how much it stands out. We're just sidetracked. It's in Cat. I think it's in Cat when Cat wakes up. from
Oh, right.
after the knife attack,
Oh
and
my
you're like,
God,
why? Who cares about the food description?
I'm so glad. Like the cat reread, I was just like bowled over at how it is such a completely different story once she wakes up.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, how? Like I was just like, wow. Is there any point in the story where a character has that much of a 180?
Hmm.
Especially in the middle of the fucking chapter. And I can't think of anything where it's just she is a completely different character.
Yeah.
Whether intentional or accidental, I don't know. But man. Oh, I wonder if it'd be more true to George R. R. Martin to have an American voice for The Winds of Winter, like Mark Hamill or somebody. There's
Yeah, that'd
something
be cool.
to George's language because he's not using real old timey, but he's using like perceived old timey, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so, and it is a lot to do with like,
Mayhaps and whatever. So those Georgisms.
right. Like it's not the real Middle Ages, but it's like things we think about the Middle Ages, Like I say, like
Yeah.
Lord's Right of the First Night didn't really fucking happen. Like rushes, which he describes all the time, they weren't really used that much. Like stone walls didn't exist in castles. They had plaster. People would plaster walls. It's just
Yeah.
that when you have a ruin and the roof is gone and the plaster is washed away, they don't put the plaster back up. But no one had a stone wall. Like no king is sitting with stone walls behind him or whatever.
It's like when you see like stuff set in ancient Rome, like movies in Rome, and everything's the whitewashed, nothing's
Right,
painted or anything. It's like that, where it's just a byproduct of the preservation, but we perceive
right,
that as like the actual past.
right. At least with the statues, we know that they were painted. And I would say it's probable that they were painting the columns and all sorts of stuff to make stuff colorful,
Right.
that this whole like placid white like idea is just not the way things were. Like everything was comfortable. But I think it's not just that, but also there's a lot of, because George is an American and um, our perception, there's a lot of perception of the way British are that's like put into the story, because whenever Americans imagine the Middle Ages, we default to these British accent people, and we think about
Yeah.
medieval England first and foremost when we think about the Middle Ages, despite the Middle Ages being 1,000 years, and involving all of Europe, and each of those pieces was very different. As Americans, we default to England. So I think there's some language stuff in there. Like, so one of the things I noticed when I was an English teacher in China is all the Chinese people, when they were learning English, would say clever and instead of smart. Like an American would say, "Oh, that person's really smart. That person's really intelligent." And so when my Chinese students were like, "Oh, he's very clever," and I'm like, it's not really clever. Like
Yeah.
we think, like, and I tried to explain to them, like, clever, at least to an American, is like quick thinking, but in a kind of like meaningless way. Like
Kind
if
of
you're
like
good at
cutting corners.
Sudoku, you're clever. If you're coming up with jokes, you're clever. But
Yeah.
no one would sit, like some guy doing astrophysics at MIT. No one's going to be like, that guy's really clever. No, they'd be like, no, that guy's fucking intelligent, right? So I wonder, like, how often he does use smart. He uses smart every once in a while, but how often does he use clever? Like a British versus. So, for instance, George uses clever 184 times.
Oh, there you go.
But he uses smart 29 times, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like an American in their normal speech is going to be using smart way, way more than they're ever going to use clever. We rarely use the word clever in America. So he like purposely tries to Britishize some of his speech. And I think like Roy Dotrice like is in that vein, making it all seem Britishy. Like a Brit watching must be like, what are these fucking Americans talking about?
I love whenever a British narrator on an audiobook puts on an American accent where like a character is American and you see their interpretation. It's like, well, how they do? Like it's like so bizarre. It's like a character, and I'm like, oh, is that how they think we treat them? Like, because you don't pick up on it. You only pick up on it if it's your own culture.
Yeah, he does use no one, but he doesn't use nobody. Does he use nobody? He uses no one. Literally. Oh my god,
He
that's
doesn't use no one.
crazy.
He doesn't ever uses no one
He
or
uses no
nobody,
one. He uses
but
no one
nobody,
813 times. He uses nobody
nobody.
3 times.
Wow, where are they? Where are they used at?
It's 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 Arya and Gren. So it's like purposely
Okay.
stupid, crude characters.
Yeah.
Like Arya uses crude language. She uses like, oh, that's stupid. Well, hardly anybody else says stupid in the story. They use, some other more poetic
That
way.
she's blunt and brash like an
Yeah.
American.
So
Like
she can say nobody. But the fact that like 3 times and he uses no one, like nobody. That's funny. Clever bird, clever man, clever fool. Right. You know. If That's so funny. Um, he only uses squirt twice.
ew. When does he use that? When does
Oh
he use that?
man,
The Asha
I don't
chapters,
know.
the Asha and Sam chapters.
No, he uses squirt 9 times. Blood
Oh, it's
squirting
Shagwell. One.
from someone. Milk squirting from an udder. Ooh, Arya squirted past Greenbeard so fast she never saw her. Or he never
Oh,
saw her.
what the hell?
The Myronese can squirt boiling oil out of them mouths and cook your axemen where they
Okay.
stand. Joff was no more to me than a squirt of seed in Cersei's cunt.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I thought a pump is another one. Pump like Shagwell uses or something. It always stuck out with me. I'm like, ew, it's such a gross word for sex. Like,
Yeah. Uh, uh, yeah, when he wants to be vulgar. That's so funny.
you're like, oh, this gross old man. This gross. Oh, by the way, I interrupted you last stream where you were talking about the Moabites or something. I was curious to know about what was it your yeah.
Oh. Um so there's some interesting things about the Moabites. So like so you get back to like, okay, so I mean Trey knows this stuff, but for other people, there was a time where essentially there were two great powers in the Mediterranean. There were the Hittites and the Egyptians, and they essentially had this Cold War going
Hmm.
on where the Hittites ruled essentially Lebanon, Syria, uh, uh, Turkey, up into Greece. Like the Hittites had all this area, and then the Egyptians had modern day Israel, Palestine, Jordan, down into Egypt and such. And the two empires ruled for a long time. And then there was a great cataclysm of some sort. We're not sure what happened. It was probably many causes. The Sea Peoples attacked, or the Assyrians coming in from the east. A lot of different reasons, but um, disruption of the tin trade. But the Hittite Empire collapses, and the Egyptian Empire recedes significantly.
Hmm.
So something happened during this great cataclysm. And so out of this, the Canaanite civilizations then come about. And when I say Canaanites, you mainly hear of the Israelites, right? And the Judahites. But there were a bunch of these Semitic-speaking civilizations that rose out of the power vacuum that the Hittites and the Egyptians left in the Great Cataclysm. And so you have the Israelites and the Judahites, and then on the east side of the Jordan River, you've got the Ammonites, the Moabites, and the Edomites. Ammon, Jordan is named for the Ammonites. The next one a little further south are the Moabites, and the Edomites are in the south. According to the Bible, there was the Israelites and then they split, but there's no evidence of actually a unified kingdom. So this is this idea that like Saul, David, and Solomon were like real kings. We don't really have much evidence that they were actual existing people, which will drive many biblical people, religious people, and Jewish people crazy if you say that like King David didn't really exist. They go nuts over this.
Look, they got that one inscription.
Like,
they got the one inscription that they hold up all the time.
Right. There's a couple of inscriptions that say like, we fought the house of DV, and they're like, clearly right there, the house of DV. And you're like, that's all you got. Like a house, like could be anybody. You called yourself the house of David doesn't mean you're necessarily like there was a David.
And sometimes those are mythical figures, as the house is
right,
like Theseus or something.
Like let's say you're of the house of Hercules, like like or whatever. But anyway, it becomes really the history people, because people will be like, but we have history of it, and it's like, but the archaeology isn't there. And keep in mind that there's a fuckload of archaeology about the divided kingdom. Like we know that there were the Israelite Judahites, Ammonites, Moabites, and Edomites. A fuckload of archaeology, just like swimming in it. And we have fucking nothing, just nothing of like the United Kingdom. But whatever the case, again, religious people are going to be really upset if you say like, I don't think there was a United Kingdom, or I don't think King David existed. So the capital of Moab, where the Moabites lived, was a city called Dibon. And keep in mind that at one point Dibon was the equivalent of Jerusalem. Like it was the Judahites had Jerusalem, and the Moabites had Dibon. And Dibon, it's somewhat near modern day Madaba in Jordan, if you want to look it up on a map. And the most famous thing that everybody found archaeologically was something called the Mesha Stele, the Mesha Stele. And King Mesha was this famed Moabite king, and he's mentioned in the Old Testament, but the Old Testament says that he was defeated by the I forget if it was the Israelites or the Judahites, and they crushed him. But then afterwards, they were like, you know what? You can have your independence anyway, because we don't fucking care about you. Which, that doesn't sound like a very realistic story. Like, no one defeats somebody and then is like, you're free. Like, that's kind of weird. Meanwhile, they dug up this Mesha Stele, and King Mesha's like, I'm King Mesha. I'm fucking awesome. I liberated my people from the Judahites, or maybe it was the Israelites, I don't know. But he's like, I fucking rocked their ass and won our kingdom independence.
It was a combination of the two kingdoms. They had joined together in an alliance against him. Apparently.
Okay, so he defeated the Israelites and the Judahites aligned, well, or whatever. But he won and won independence for his kingdom, and so he created this tablet to commemorate how awesome he was. And so it's a really interesting tablet because it confirms that some of the Bible is true, but it also is clearly discrediting the Bible as well, because the Bible says somebody completely different won the war. And really, like when you examine those two sources, his Stele is like much more believable. Like winning a war and winning your independence makes a lot more sense than losing a war and getting your independence, right?
Well, and he had enough independence and I guess wealth and power to make an inscription on a stele of his power. Like, like that clearly indicates that he was the one in power and had enough at least to get people to quarry the stone and stuff, right? And inscribe it.
So I think in that he also mentions that he defeated the house of DV, or whatever. You know, like
Yes, I found it. I found it. Yeah. There's a whole section on Wikipedia for it. The proposed references to David in the House of David. Oh
yeah.
gosh. Yeah.
But like, keep in mind that like in Semitic languages, there's no vowels, so you're not getting D-A-V-I-D. And then the last, so the only consonants you get are D and V, and then the last consonant is not on there, so it's just the House of DV, and they're like, that's the So, but nonetheless, like it's kind of it's fun. It's
That
interesting.
is fun. That's cool. Yeah, because we have that with the with Egyptian and Hittite history too, is where like they give like they do like this where they claim that they won the war and the other one claims that they won the war. So it's like who knows? You don't know who did it.
Right. Like sometimes it just doesn't make like the Ramses the third inscription that he like completely crushed the sea peoples.
Right.
But they have a war with the sea peoples like 20 years later, and it's like if you completely crushed them and annihilated them, like why did they come back 20 years later to have a second war with you? Like, it doesn't sound like you did a very good job, dude.
They're like the Empire in Star Wars. They reformed 20
Right.
years
Also,
later.
like it goes without saying, like if you thoroughly crushed them and they were so pathetic, like why are you celebrating so much?
Right.
Like if they weren't worth your time, you wouldn't commemorate it, right? So there are these little things like that, like.
That's cool. I'm happy I asked because I interrupted you like mid sentence and then I sidetracked it to talk about like Roman history. I was like, no, I want to know what Preston was going to say because I learned. That's awesome.
There it was. But yes, if you know how to piss people off, is to bring this up. And Wikipedia is very funny because my brother-in-law is an archaeologist, and he'll say that like Wikipedia, like because he deals with stuff that affects the Bible, like you can't sit there and like guard your Wikipedia articles because somebody's going to come in and try to change it. Like
right.
there's too many people with too much time on their hands who are just like, I'm going to
too motivated. Yeah.
And I was like, does it matter? And he's like, it matters in the sense that like the modern person, but like among archaeologists, like no archaeologist is going to Wikipedia to like believe anything. I remember mentioning this to I think it was a geologist as well, like one of my friends who's a geologist, and he's like, you know what the nice thing about hard science is? There's actually an observable truth. Like you can change Wikipedia all day long. It's not going to fucking change the fact that in the world, this is how something works, Right. Like you can write on Wikipedia that the rate of acceleration is 8 meters per second squared. But when you go and test it, it's going to be fucking 9.8, So like, it doesn't fucking matter. You can fucking spend all day trying to convince people like what people like dug out of the ground. No, like the archaeologists aren't reading Wikipedia. They all know the truth, and they're the ones that are going to matter for like academic journals. And like in 100 years, like no one's going to care about what someone wrote on Wikipedia,
Right.
Yeah. So. Yeah, World War II and World War I and World War II are almost 20 years apart. You're right. I mean, that's the thing is, but if the Allied powers were like, we fucking crushed the Germans, and
say stuff that like they're extinct, like the like there's the Merneptah stele like explicitly says like the Israelite people are extinct and they are no more and stuff like that, and that's just clearly wrong. They kept on existing. Right. So, yeah, they do that. Especially Egyptian sources do that, where they claim total defeat. It's like no,
we annihilated them all. It was glorious, glorious.
It's like the Black Fires, you keep on coming back.
You're right. Wars never end, man. Wars never end. Oh man. One was the sea peoples and the other was the sea people. Oh, I see.
Do you know why they're not even really called the sea people that often? There's like only like 2. We know about the sea peoples explicitly in like 7 sources, 7 Egyptian like inscriptions or
It's just
walls.
because it's what the Egyptians called them, right?
And no, and they call them that like 2 times. They say just like
Yeah.
people from the sea, and more often than not, they list out their ethnic groups and stuff. And
Yeah.
like this is the
Yeah.
they were the Shekelesh, Mekelesh, blah, 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 and like a whole bunch of names. And it's just some French guy who was like,
during
let's
this
just call them the sea
alliance,
peoples.
right. I mean, it could, like I say, it could be meaningless. It's like saying Axis powers and being like, the culture of the Axis powers. Like, what do you mean the culture of the Axis? Like Japan and Germany? Like it could be something like that. It probably was something like that. But well, it's not quite that, because they do know that there's a specific burial practice that the Sea Peoples used. Like they find that like there were some places where the Sea Peoples like took over and civilized, and they specifically buried their dead in large canopic jars rather than having graves. They like put the bodies in jars and then shoved the jars into the sand. So I mean, there did seem to be some sort of shared cultural practice, or at least one of the tribes that was taking place that was in it. So would I go on Destiny again? Sure, why not? I have no I haven't had the time or inkling to do it. Carmine goes on every once in a while, but Kings 327 attributes the Moabite victory to supernatural causes. The thing is, there's a few wars with the Moabites because it's a long fucking history with them. So it's kind of random because because the Ammonites and the Moabites and the Edomites, they all speak Semitic languages and they're all warring with each other. Like it's interesting that like the creation stories and whatever like focus on that the Israelites and the Judahites were somehow the same people, but not the Moabites, Ammonites, and Edomites, but kind of, because they attribute their genesis to Lot and Lot's cave. So yeah, no, seriously, that's
Oh gosh, it's very fitting that they do that for their enemies too. They're
right. But it's one of those things. Like clearly, these guys are similar to us because their language is incredibly similar, and their practices are incredibly similar. The big difference was they had their own. Back then people weren't monotheistic. They were
like henotheism, like where like you
yeah
acknowledge the existence, but their gods are lesser,
right.
Yeah. Or more God going by different names.
You worship one God, but you acknowledge the existence of other gods, and that's how Yahweh began, right? And so they had their own God, recognizing that Yahweh was like the God of the Judahites, and so. So
you want to Preston, you want to piss people off. Tell them that like the Exodus didn't happen. That's like that's
true too. Like, yeah, the Exodus didn't happen. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
God.
There's no evidence that the Exodus happened. But it is another way. It's another way to really piss people off. But I asked about this, like, why was there a need to invent these stories of like the Exodus? And according to my brother-in-law, he said, well, keep in mind that say you are you're living in the land and you notice that your language is very similar and your practices are very similar to the civilization over there, and you're like, how did those similarities come about? And you're like, well, we must have some sort of like story, some sort of creation myth that explains why these two things are similar.
Yeah.
And it's just like a need for human beings to connect things and have an explanation for the connection. I mean, we see this today with conspiracy theories, right? That like people see two things and they want to connect the two things that are similar, and they want to connect them and have logic to why they're connected. And so it was just that. Trey, how do you feel about the theory that the Sumerians share the same culture ethnicity as modern Sino-Asians like the Chinese due to some
Oh,
shared words?
I've seen people do this with like various cultures and stuff, and I don't know. That's the thing with like language is it's so malleable and changes so quickly. Um, People have like people have done that with like Proto-Indo-European. We're like, yes, all like Indo-Indian and like European languages are shared with a common origin of like these horse lords that took over like the Dothraki and spread their language. And people have done this with like religious beliefs too, where that like the word for like the high god is very similar across religions, like Zeus and like I'm trying to think of like the Hindu equivalent. But yeah, people have done it, and it's hard to test. You know, it's like it's hard to test if it's true or not because of the murkiness of history, and that maybe they just picked up a word through like trade caravans or something like that and incorporated it into their language. Like I've learned, I don't know, I watch anime and stuff, and you'll listen to anime, and Japanese people will use the word like pan to call bread, and I'm like pan bread, and I took Spanish in like high school. I'm like, yes, that's
Bon.
like connected to Spanish and
Mhm.
Portuguese and stuff, and it's actually and like I was like, why do they have the same word for bread? And it's like, well, the Portuguese colonized and gave bread to them, and they use the word for bread in the language, just passed on by the Portuguese. It's not like some deep connection or anything like that. Yeah, Carmen, sorry I interrupted you.
No, that's the word for bread, pão, in
Yeah,
Portuguese.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're right.
Because when I heard it, I was like, is there like some deep ancient connection that they both, like the Portuguese and Spanish, both have the same word for bread as Japanese people? I was like, no, it's like cause and effect, and it's a very recent thing that only came about like in like the 1600s and stuff. So yeah, yeah, it wasn't like originally in the language. So that's why I say to that stuff, it's kind of hard to test. I don't know. The thing is with like DNA really like is able to confirm or dispute stuff, and if you don't have really DNA evidence backing it up, then I don't know. Who knows? Sorry, I'll go on a tangent. But it's interesting. I don't know.
New video ideas.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Oh, Trey, I have a friend of mine. He's gonna start a YouTube channel soon. I was telling this to Preston. He is a pastor in California, and he's not like a crazy douchebag pastor. No, he's like he's very religious Christian guy. Knows everything about the Bible and all this other like Bible adjacent stories and all that stuff. Super chill, down to earth. You'd love him. I should have him on, and I want to see if you guys can piss him off because
Oh gosh, I hope not.
because no, he was really cool because this sounds like a conversation that he'd be down to have.
Yeah, no, I love talking about the Bible. I find it really fascinating stuff, and yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, and that's the thing is Sumerians. Oh, this is something I bring up. Like, there's like a Rick and Morty joke that's like trying to be like an edgelord, like atheist, like hat tipping thing, and it's like the Mesopotamians, and the Sumerians or something like that. They're making like a distinction between them, and it's like, well, Mesopotamian was not like a word they actually called for themselves. I'm trying to think, yeah, because people get them all mixed up. Like people lump Sumerians and Akkadians and Assyrians all together, but they're very different people groups. Yeah, yeah. I'm looking at all these people are talking to me. I like this. I like
I
this.
know. I saw this interesting one, and I wanted to bring it up because I'm a little Cherokee, and for real, the Cherokees are the closest in DNA to Egyptians and not other Native Americans. Um, so the problem with identifying DNA with American Indians is that there are a lot of white Americans who have an American Indian myth in their family, and so who and I'm not saying yours is a myth, but I'm saying there's a lot of people in America that have the, oh no, my grandmother was a quarter Cherokee, almost specifically with Cherokee, and so because all of the DNA tests that you take, like 23andMe, they're based on circular reporting.
Right.
So if a bunch of people say like, oh no, our family comes from Poland, they notice a gene that's similar in all of these people that have a story, they associate Poland with that gene. And then when you come in and you have that gene, they'll be like, you're Polish. But it's very circular, because what if all of those people
are wrong?
Or what some story that disappeared. Maybe you're all gypsy and you didn't, you thought it was shameful to be gypsy and you dropped that and you're not hearing about it. So it's not that it's not interesting, but it's funny that you can even do 23andMe and they'll bring up national ethnicities for let's keep in mind relatively young concepts like nation states. When people say something like, "Oh man, I'm a quarter Irish," you're like, well, when did Ireland become like a country? Like as a concept even? Like, what do you mean by that? Like
right.
That you're Irish versus Scottish or whatever. Like these are very, very weird concepts to take the modern nation state, this concept that's, a few hundred years old, and then attribute an ethnicity that's almost racial. Like, oh, I've got I've got Ukrainian blood in me. I've got Lithuanian blood in me. I've got Burundian blood in me. You're like, for these sometimes relatively new things. Like, if I said I have American blood in me, everyone would kind of like understand that's kind of a ridiculous, funny concept. But prior to the creation of America,
it's not that much different.
Still moving around all the fucking time.
Because if you go back 2,000 years, everything was just Roman in Europe and Picts and stuff. There weren't any like Poles or anything like that.
Right. Like everybody's just moving. Everybody's moving.
With this, okay, let me read. Yeah, because I took genetics in college. That was my major. I'm a little Cherokee, and for real, the Cherokee are closest in DNA to Egyptians, not other Native Americans. That's just not. That's just not true. Like, Native Americans split. We know this through the genetics from other peoples in the old world thousands of years ago. Like at the very least, tens of thousands of years ago, and that's backed up by the genetics. So there's no like. That would really call like there'd be scientists being like, wow, the Cherokee are like descendants of there's been gene flow from the old world pre-contact and stuff. It would be big news. That's not true. And yeah, and you're right, there's 23.
Trey, let him feel special. This is the ultimate white people thing. White people love not being right until it's like appropriate.
I get it. I'm like barely Chinese. I'm like quarter Chinese.
But all of this fits into like but all this comes back to like the stories that we're talking about, right? Like these mythological stories, that like what's in our blood like kind of matters and like brings us pride and joy. I mean, I do it too. Like I talk about being Dutch all the time. Like, oh, that's why I'm so tall, because I'm Dutch. Oh, that's why I'm such an asshole, because I'm Dutch. Like I have all these fucking things I say about this stuff. And it's like first of all, I'm only like 25% Dutch, but like how, it's such an important part of our lives, but it's all bullshit. Like, and I'm like starting from history all the way in. I'm going from like, these stories about like the House of David and the killing the sea peoples and all these different stuff and like all these things that are so important. It's all bull. Like everything.
And if you do like the math and stuff where like who's descended from who, there's like a genealogist that's done this with like Charlemagne, where what was the Count Dooku actor? I like how I use Count Dooku and not Saruman. Christopher Lee made a big deal about. He's like, yes, I am a direct descendant of King Charlemagne or whatever. And he has like and he always bragged about that. And the geneticists kind of proved that like if you are a European descendant of European descent, you are descended from Charlemagne. Just doing the math, like where like if you look at how many people like. How many ancestors you have to have had at that time, where there's like you do the exponential growth, where you have 4 grandparents, and then you have I don't know what is it 16 great grandparents or whatever, and you do that all the way back to King Charlemagne's day. It says that there's like 1 trillion people alive at that time. That's just not true. They're condensed. They're condensed. So everybody's related to pretty much everybody else back at that time.
Right, but then I saw a video recently about how like we're actually not even related to our own ancestors, because at some point, because like DNA, you get to the point where there's not enough DNA to actually have
Yeah.
a piece of DNA of all of your ancestors, because actually some of your ancestors like their DNA is completely wiped out like over time. So like some of your ancestors you don't have any DNA left of. Which
So
is
does that mean that most of the people in Asia aren't really related to, what is it, Genghis Khan? Was it Khan?
well,
Genghis
no,
Khan?
I had to think. Somebody brought up the Genghis Khan thing too, and they're like, "Oh, can we find all this Genghis Khan?" And they're like, "It might be Genghis Khan, but it might also just be any other random." It is true that there is a shared, like genetic marker that, like, for that region, and it's a great story that it's Genghis Khan, because yeah, he was going around, doing it with everybody, right? But it could also be anybody. Like
It could
have
be any
been
member of his family, like a royal family member that was just widely spread. Like it doesn't have to be
right, or
Genghis Khan.
like you also think about how many descendants like any individual has after 100 years, and you're like, oh
Right.
shit, that's a lot of people, and all of a sudden you're at Genghis Khan numbers by just going back a century.
Right.
So like the number of descendants, yeah, like Genghis Khan is banging, but you would have that many descendants in a century too.
Right.
So it's like how, like, it could just been anybody. It's a nice story, and maybe it makes sense. Maybe it's Genghis Khan, could be anybody.
Yeah.
I thought this was funny because, like I say, this person's like, yeah, my grandmother said she was Cherokee, and I took the test, and there was nothing there. But somebody mentioned that there's this ethnic Albanians in Kosovo share genetic markers with North Africa, and Albanians share, and no one really understands. And it's true, but it could also just be some dudes moved. Like that's
Right.
it. Like
More
it could just
recent-
be
more
some dudes
recently.
moved.
Like you're only as good as your data, like unless you have ancient skeletons that can be dated to a certain time period, and it can only tell you a single snapshot of a small community at that time period too.
Right.
That's the problem. All the data is very limited, and then people have moved so much.
It's an interesting story when it's Genghis Khan conquering and plundering, but also remember, like, people traded and people moved, and it could have just been like, it's just not
and
a good story.
And the
when it's
Mongol
like,
Empire
oh,
expanded, and tons of people migrated under that expansion.
right? Like
Bureaucrats and random people,
Like if you're Spanish, a lot of people take the 23andMe, and they're like, oh, it says that some of my blood is North African, and because the Moors like came in and like raped our lands, and you're like, yeah, okay, or intermarriage, like, or some Spaniards that left and went to Morocco, like, reported being Spanish, and some reported being North African, and the data got mixed up. It's so hard. This isn't an exact science.
Yeah. When you take genetics, you learn how much BS the 23andMe typically are, like those programs. Like if it's okay, what I talked to a professor about this, if it's like 1 or 2%, it's probably a rounding error. Like it's probably just a problem with their sample and misreporting. Like it probably, like if it's a small percentage, it means nothing, basically.
Because that's the story so many people have. So many people have the story of like, oh yeah, my mom said that we're 25% Irish and 25% German, 25% Italian and 25% Spanish. And I got it back, and it said that I was Irish and German and Italian and Spanish, but then it's like 2% Chinese. Where did that come from? And that's the story of everybody. Like everybody has that 23andMe story of like,
get the Nigerian.
Where did that come from? Who knows? Like,
yeah. Oh gosh.
Also, like, can't there be, and I'm no geneticist, but isn't there also like random mutation and change? Like, couldn't random mutation and change like signal something from a completely different area that's just not true?
Yes. Like the thing is, they use SNPs. They use these non-coding regions in your DNA that mutate at a slow rate. Or I guess it's not, evolution is not acting on them, so there's nothing that it shouldn't be passed down with any greater or lesser thing. So like, say your grandpa had this particular SNP at this region that's unique to him, and he would pass it down to you and all his descendants, and he should. And that's what people have done, basically, like, yes, everybody in Poland has this particular SNP sequence passed down. But you're right, random mutation could cause that. And there's diversity within populations too. Like they're only as good as their sample size, and if their sample size is accurate, there's all these problems with it. It basically means nothing. It basically means
Trey,
nothing.
check Discord. Check
Yeah,
my Discord DM, dude, buddy. That's a real thing, apparently.
Well, let me see this. Yes, yeah, it's like a metal album. Yeah, I this is mentioned in the genetics book that I learned this, where Christopher Lee was very obsessed about that he's descended from Charlemagne, and really it doesn't mean that much. Like so are me and you and Preston.
Right, but
like,
there was this real
thing.
like I think the video I saw, like you can go back about 200 to 300 years, and then your descendancy kind of becomes a fog. Like you're so mixed up at that point that it's really hard to even differentiate.
And there's so many millions of descendants at that point where you're like, does it even count?
What's your background at that point, And then like the same, like 200 years in the future, your descendants will all like blend away. Which is, it's kind of interesting because it's also like it's a little poetic because it's like how we enter life. Like we enter life. It's not like we just started and we remember when we started living. We kind of phased in, right? Like none of us remember the first 4 years or that moment. It's so ridiculous. That's my mom trying to FaceTime me, but I tried to call her. It was one of this before my 2-year-old went to bed. He all of a sudden was like out of nowhere, like, I want to talk to Nana, and he was going nuts. And I was like, oh my God, she'll love this. I tried to call her, but she was like in a movie or something. And I was like, now she's trying to call me back. And it's like, well, now he's okay. So
dang it.
Yeah, it was like a perfect moment. And I was like, oh, well. But yeah, but like even when we think about like where we come from, like, like, yeah, in like a greater like racial sense, like, yeah, white people, black people, Asian people, but like in a family sense, like you don't really know much about who you were before 300 years, and you're not going to know very much about who your descendants are going to be in 300 years, genetically, even culturally. Like, you can try to instill some value in your kids, but in like 200, 300 years, everything you taught is going to be like phased away.
It's weird because I saw somebody bring up Cherokee, right? That's the one that they bring up. Like that Cherokee didn't exist. The concept of being Cherokee didn't really exist until after the 1500s. Like prior to Columbus, like the culture groups of America were totally different. We don't even know what they really were and stuff. Like we had like the Mississippian societies and stuff, but that's a name that we thrust onto them. The modern Native American groups are a product of the sort of century that happened after Columbus and the European diseases just decimated the continent and caused all these crazy mass migrations and stuff like Comanche. Comanche didn't exist until maybe the 1700s or something like that. So there, like it is on par with going that like, yes, I'm an American, like I'm 100% American. Like it doesn't mean that much if it's something that only began like 300 years ago. Like what does that mean genetically?
Long ago, your race was your religion. I think in some places, yes. It's weird how we're taught history that way. You know what I'm talking about? Like in school, in America at least, I don't know how. I only know the American education system, but how we learned history was you kind of start out learning about, Babylonia, and you learn about the Egyptians, you learn about Greece and Rome. And then all of a sudden they shift the narrative and it's the Christian Muslim fight.
Oh yeah. That there's like that the history of the world is just wars between religions and stuff and
all
nations
of a sudden
around
there's that
religions.
Shift in how we learn history, which having studied it then Spanish history later on in college, like I realized that the Christian Muslim split in the narrative is really a bullshit split because like the Christians are fighting each other and the Muslims are fighting each other and they're teaming up on a small level, aligning, and it's not like there was this monolith of Christians and a monolith of Muslims like fighting each other. That was just never the world. So but there is that shift on how we learn it historically. And I'm sure in different places, I'm positive in different places, like that's how they saw things. But it is interesting of like what quality you identify first as your identity, which is fascinating. Like, you're from Georgia, Trey, yes?
Yes.
Would you describe yourself as Georgian first or American first?
Oh, that's a good question.
Right.
I say American first because, like, I think of like because you're like it's so nebulous. Like, what do I consider Georgian culture? And it's like rednecks, like Confederate flag waving kind of people. I was like, that's not me. Yeah.
Right. So, but you can interview different people, and you say like, okay, let's say you take like an American, and you say, okay, you've got a guy from Kansas, and he's a white Christian American from Kansas, and you ask him, which of these things are you first? Are you Christian first? Are you American first? Are you Kansas first? Like,
you say
which
Christian
item
first.
would you put first?
Yeah.
Or are you Kansas City first?
Your city state.
Well, the thing is in certain places the city is the primary like identifier, and in certain places it's not. In certain places I don't care. Like, would I, am I a Baltimorean first or Washingtonian first? Like, it's not how Americans think. We tend to actually go because we're pumped so filled with nationalism in America. We tend to think of ourselves as Americans first, and then
maybe the state.
Maybe the state, depends. Sometimes the city first. I think if you're from New York City, you might think of yourself as New York City first versus New York State first. Or if you're from Chicago, you're definitely going to be thinking of yourself as Chicago first versus Illinois. But it all kind of depends. It gets mushy. I want to bring up, there's this great academic, and I really feel bad for him because he was brilliant, and he never had a good shake. His name is Justin Ruddleson, and he wrote a book called Oasis Identities. And I feel bad. I've met him. He was one of the smartest men I'd ever met, and he was and Oasis Identities is really fascinating because Justin Ruddleson, he's this Jewish guy from America who decided to live in the Muslim northwest of China and study the Uyghurs. He is why I'm obsessed with Uyghurs. Like, why Uyghur chat appears in is largely due to Justin Ruddleson. Brilliant guy. And he did this. He went around, he spent years becoming an expert on the Uyghurs, so much so that China banned him.
Damn.
And then his universities stopped, like, he didn't get tenure. I think he was at Dartmouth, and he tried to get tenure, and they're like, you can't go to your country to study your subject. Like, what good are you as an academic?
Wow.
And they're like, yeah. And his career was
sucks.
like this. Oh yeah. But bad things happen to bad people. But man, so he went around interviewing Uyghurs and they identified mostly on their city, which is why he talks about Oasis identities. Because back then, you're talking about, this is a rather desertous landscape, and the cities and communities focus on these oases. And so each oasis is its own culture. Often their language is different. And he would ask them, like, are you Muslim first? Are you Chinese? Are you Kashgar? Or are you Uyghur? And they would for the most part, rank their oasis first, which is really interesting because the Uyghur concept is a very, very young concept, almost created by the Chinese and the Chinese brutality against them. Like, the thing that bound them together was the fact that the Chinese were brutalizing them. The Soviets had invented a term as well. So the Soviets invented the term Uyghur for a certain types of, they were trying to classify their minorities. So in West Turkestan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, like the Soviets had come up with like, okay, these are Kazakhs and these are Kyrgyz and these are Uyghurs, and these are Tungans and stuff like this. And then the Chinese were like, all right, copy paste, right? And, you know, so then they started brutalizing the Uyghurs, and now they kind of think of themselves as Uyghurs and that there's a united Uyghur people, but they never thought that before. So like the Uyghur identity was invented by the Chinese through their brutalization of them. You know? I mean, I suppose it's somewhat similar to the fact that like Black American identity, which is very cohesive, was also disparate, but invented because America took a bunch of disparate Black people from Africa and then brutalized them through slavery and then treated them legally the same way in law and discriminated against them until there was a unified Black community, right? Like,
Right.
It's the same thing in China. Like, you know, you're going to brutalize some people uniformly. They're going to all of a sudden be like, hey, we're going through something together. But
Yeah.
But yeah, like what you choose to latch to is kind of random. Whether you're going to choose like what's your identity, you know?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That's interesting. Dang. I'm thinking. I'm for some reason I'm thinking about Ice and Fire. Like what is because we talked about this a little bit. Like do they use like their kingdom? Like am I a Westerman or something like that? And this is never really brought up. Besides Northerners and Free Folk, maybe.
They don't feel proud to be seven kingdomsmen, right? Westermen or whatever. Is it similar to Palestine? I mean, the entire Middle East. I mean, I would say that like it's probably certainly similar to like the Jewish people too. Like, you know, some people. So like, I'll talk about like the Jewish community in America. There's a segment of the Jewish community that worries that the Jewish community of America is assimilating too quickly. That the extra marriage rate among American Jews is really high. Like, you know, 50% of Jews marry non-Jews. And so, and they kind of believe that like, if you marry a non-Jew, that means you're on your way to assimilating out from and not being Jewish within a couple of generations. While if you marry a Jew, you'd be raising Jewish children or something. And if you're in a society that's like abusing you and treating you differently, like say you're in, you know, let's say you're in Germany and like the local Germans won't marry you and you have to and won't talk to you, and the only people that are going to talk to you are other Jews. Of course you're going to marry a Jewish person, the Jewish community is going to accept you. But if like everybody's treating you like one of them and you blend in and intermarry, like essentially I guess the best way to actually like deal with a troublesome community is to treat them really well, and then they'll assimilate and then they'll disappear. The worst thing is actually to abuse them, because then they're going to stick around and hate you or whatever. But Palestinian identity. I mean, let's see. The British had so certain, you know, these were provinces at different times, under different areas of the Ottoman Empire and things like this. So the idea that someone is Palestinian or Philistine can certainly go back. I mean, and this is not to say that things don't appear like with regards to like the Moabites bringing it back. You know, I was talking to my brother-in-law 20 years ago. Nothing was called Moab in that area. But now, if you go to Madaba, you'll see Moab Hotel, Moab this, Moab that. And you talk to the Jordanians there, they'll be like, oh, yes, no, I feel like I have Moabite blood in me. And you're like, do ya?
Especially when you're talking about something like the Middle East, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many cultures that have migrated and settled there. You had like Greeks,
migrated in, migrated out, gotten killed,
Arabs, and
out, conquered.
Yeah, Romans. Like, oh my gosh, there's so much.
You know, but I mean, I think this is also why like the American Indian like myth it manifests in Americans so much. Is you're in the land, you're in this land that was the American Indians' land, and you feel like you want to be connected to it, and so you're like, oh, no, I've got the blood of the ancient people here. You know,
I'm not that bad, all right. I'm not all white. I'm not a colonizer. I'm a mix. You know, I'm a little bit of the native.
But you know, I don't want to pick. I don't want to say like the Palestinians are like anybody else. Yes, their identity is invented. These are imagined communities. Like Jews, Palestinians are all invented. Okay, they don't really exist outside of the concept that we all pretend that they exist. You know. Yeah. So, like, if everybody woke up and was like, you know what, I'm not that. It would cease to exist.
Every woke up and said, "I'm an Andal."
Then all of a sudden the Andals, right? So it's wait, what if we gave Germany to the Palestinians? That way the whole thing becomes an elaborate trade. I will tell you that at this point, Palestinians are pretty like. Keep in mind that like every Palestinian knows what city they're from. It's part of their narrative. Like when you talk to Palestinian refugees and you talk to Palestinians, like the expatriate community, you find a Palestinian in America, okay, and you say, "Hey, what city are you from?" They know, and you know, it's just connected. And the thing is that it's connected to their surnames. Like a lot of times, people say like, "Oh, what surname is it?" "Oh, yeah, no, I know they're from Jericho." Okay, yeah. Oh no, they're from Nablus. Okay, yeah. They all have that. It's very important to a Palestinian to know what city they're from, and they all fucking love the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque. Like they fucking love those mosques so much. They're the most important things in the fucking world. They have murals all over the fucking place to them. Okay? You could give them Germany and it doesn't matter. They'd be like, no. I remember somebody, an Israeli was telling me that back when Israel didn't exist and the diaspora was together, like that they used to toast during Passover and say like, next year in Jerusalem or something, and that this like return to Jerusalem narrative was always part of their culture, and therefore he was justifying that like they belonged in Jerusalem because they kept this like long narrative for 1,000 2,000 years. And I'm like, Palestinians have that narrative, the exact same narrative. Like they're like, Jerusalem is ours, it's our city, it's the city of the Palestinians. Every part of my being like knows that Al-Quds is the capital of Palestine, and it is the center of Palestinian culture, and everything that we are is Al-Quds. And like you'll never remove that from them, ever. Like, so it's yeah. But yes, it's completely unfair.
Sorry, I just saw somebody who's like, "Can we go back to the Song of Ice and Fire discussion?"
Yes, man, we can. If you got a good question, man. It's all about.
You gotta get the Gascari knot, the Maronese knot. What are the Maronese? The Maronese are so attached to the pyramid, the Great Pyramid. They look back at it. They're never leaving. Danny can try to get them to move. I don't know. I'm trying. The harpy's at the heart of it all.
Preston, you mentioned you were writing a book. What's it like, and how much inspiration have you had from A Song of Ice and Fire? Not too much from A Song of Ice and Fire, but keep in mind that the book started before I got into A Song of Ice and Fire. It's been over 10 years in the making. So like the plot and structure and everything is not similar to A Song of Ice and Fire in any respect. Perhaps like I'm trying to think of like when I wrote the final chapters, like I could maybe some of the writing style that you could maybe say, but very like there might be some language writing style, but like none of the plot or how the story is structured is similar to A Song of Ice and Fire at all. But you know, like I say, it's a story about two travelers traveling from Morocco to the east, Japan, Philippines, like in two alternate universes who dream each other's dreams. It's done. I just need to fucking work on it. But I have some fucking time.
You know, I was trying to push Trey. I was trying to push Trey into writing a book, or either writing a book, or what's the other idea I had for you, Trey? Remind me.
You said a calendar, a nudie calendar.
I said sexy calendar. I never said
sorry,
nudie.
Sexy calendar.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sorry, I'm projecting.
Preston will back me up on this. You're already putting out those sexy pictures on Twitter for free.
I'm just saying, for free. I know. I could charge them.
Preston, right?
Could charge people for it.
So Carmine and I, like we all recognize that Carmine and I both recognize that like the YouTuber that inspired our channel.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean the YouTuber who inspired our channel, who we kind of copied in the beginning on like what she was doing and everything, was Comic Book Girl 19.
Tucker Carlson. Yeah, Comic Book Girl 19. Yes.
Comic Book Girl 19 did do a sexy calendar for money eventually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think she.
Okay, I see. I looked her up. She's a attractive lady, I guess. Yeah.
There's one there's one picture from the calendar if you put the calendar thing in there, but there she is. Yeah. But it's funny because like,
yeah.
I mean, YouTube is weird because you know, like I understand. Like people tell me all the time, like YouTubers that are much bigger than me. Some of them are like, "Oh, you were a big inspiration for me," and I was like, "Oh, well, you're way past me in importance." But like Comic Book Girl 19 is Carmine and I as like inspiration in the beginning. She's still doing stuff. I think she's mostly on. Carmine, you said she's mostly like Patreon only now.
I have no idea. She doesn't upload often enough, and when she does, I always say to myself, I should watch that, and then I never get to it.
Yeah. But she had some pretty fun videos back in the day, and but Carmine's like her boyfriend was like editing her videos and doing the work, and then they broke up. So that was a big problem.
That's always bad. I've seen that with several YouTubers where they're like a couple team and then they break up and it messes everything. So there's this divorce over the channel. I never want to do that. Oh my gosh. Yeah. If I ever write a book, because like Carmen, you were telling me I should write a book, and I really want to. It's just like hard, and it would probably just be just a book version of like a video, you know, like I don't know. I have to think about it. Yeah. Something ancient history related or something.
Well, the reason I brought it up is because there's someone a part of my community. Shout out to my boy Nick. He has published a couple of his own books, and he hit me up. He said, "Hey, Preston needs help. Let me know." So I connected them. I can connect you to Nick as well. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, like if you because I know you have a lot on your mind. I'm sure you would love to write a book. Like having that on your resume is fucking awesome. So
yeah, a fellow archaeologist YouTuber who's like around my age. Is it Minuteman Milo? I'm friends with this guy. Milo Minuteman. He's bigger than me. He blew past me. He's written a book too, and it's a good book. He did a good job. So yeah, I'm like, should I join the club? Because you're right, it gives you like a weight.
19 collab when, and Carmine's like, I've talked to Carmine about that. I was like, should we talk to her sometime? And he's like, I don't want to. No, I don't. I
That's
think it was
okay,
like
yo. You gotta stop doing this. Preston does this thing where like I will tell him like my favorite
something in
color is
confidence,
red.
and then I just reveal it on stream.
No, not something in confidence. I'll tell this fucking guy, hey, Preston, my favorite color is red, and then he'll go on stream and goes, he just said his favorite color is chartreuse. What the hell even is that?
No,
like that's
because it was
not even what I
something about.
said.
He gave me this like he had multiple reasons, but he's like.
One of the
He's
main
like-
reasons is, and I'm gonna be very real with you. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
super duper real with you. I have nothing to say to these people. I have nothing to say to
Right.
her. What am I gonna say? Like, thanks for inspiring me. She's not gonna care. She's not gonna give a fuck.
But it's kind of a funny thing because it's like, but it's the same when people are like, oh, what would you ask George R. R. Martin? And I'm like, look, I did meet him, and like one of the things you realize is that like you have no like these people that are, you very much respect and are very much your heroes. Like you at the end of the day have nothing to say to them, which is really weird, right? Like what do you say? Like because and then that's awkward. Like showering praise on them is just awkward for you, and it's awkward for them.
Well,
I agree.
There's also another
I
component
agree
to this.
100%.
There's also another
I've
component
had
to
similar-
this. Because oftentimes when I talk to YouTubers, and this is why I love Preston and I love Trey.
Yeah.
Because no one can ever say this about any of you, and I will back you guys up on this. You guys are not boring off microphone. I mean, like off video. Like when we talk privately, like you guys are super interesting. My back does not hurt coming out of that conversation because I had to carry it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Some
Yeah,
people are just fucking boring.
Carmine actually is like, why aren't you this fucking funny and brutal on stream? And I'm like, because I can't be. Oh my god.
Yo,
I was
this
as
dude,
vulgar and
Preston
fucking brutal
is.
as I am, and
Preston ruins. So he ruins the illusion because I think of Preston as Qui-Gon Jinn, but he's really just like not. He's just not. He's just really not. I'm trying to think of a good character to compare. Like, he's just not. He's not.
yeah.
He's Newt
Every
Gunray.
now and then, he'll sure, why not? He'll just say something off call. I'm like, no, why? Don't do that.
But it's like a lot of people say don't meet your heroes because they're going to disappoint you, and yeah, that can happen. But it's more often that you're just like, oh God,
What do you talk about?
What are you talking
Like,
about?
yeah.
It was the same. When I was young, like I really worshipped Bad Religion, and I remember like seeing them once out. I went to the Warped Tour, and like there were a few of them walking around, and it's just like I realized I had nothing to say. Like I had nothing to fucking say, and I was like, and I heard other people trying to talk to them, and they're just like, it's just awkward, They're like asking them about some band drama from like 5 years ago, and they're like, yeah, that's I don't know. No.
And I'm not saying Comic Book 19 is boring. I'm saying I don't know, and it's one of those things where I don't know what I would genuinely speak. I don't know what I would talk to her about. Like for example, recently, I don't want to say the name of the YouTuber because I don't want to hype it up and it come out flat. But recently, I reached out to a YouTuber who Preston really likes, and like there's stuff we can talk to him about, mainly the Ice and Fire books, and that's like like where you shine. But with Comic Book 19, she kind of gives off the vibe that she's really sick of talking about Ice and Fire. In fact, she has a whole video kind of how she's sick of it. So
it's true. She moves on and tries to do other stuff. I think it was and keep in mind that she has like Lannister tattoos like down her arms. Like she like really loved A Song of Ice and Fire, and then it became disillusioned. Like she decided she didn't like where Game of Thrones was going, and
very early on too, like season 4.
She moved on and did other stuff, and was like, I'm sick of this.
Yeah, and it was super early on, like season 4, which is okay. Like
Yeah.
also, I also sympathize with her. She didn't really want to like be the Game of Thrones channel, which is fair. So
yeah, she never did.
It is
that's all people wanted her to be, and so me and Carmine did it instead.
I met YouTubers like that. Like I'm a YouTuber like that, where I started doing dinosaur stuff and paleontology, and I've moved on. Like you're like, yeah, that stuff just doesn't interest me anymore. and you move on, and you disappoint a whole bunch of people in doing that. Like your fans are like demanding, like still to this day, people are like, bring back Paleo Profile, and it's been like I've had the channel longer without paleontology than with it, so like it's like what are you talking about? Like, how are you still here after such a long time? It's been like 7 years since I talked about paleontology, and you still wanted to come back. It's crazy. Oh no.
So Arva Kuka was really sad that he didn't get a question in. So he wanted to say, I think it'd be interesting if a resurrected John didn't remember what Arya looked like and thinks that Jane Poole is really Arya.
Oh, that's
I kind of
cool.
like that idea. Yeah.
I mean, that would be interesting. That is a problem, right? That with Jane Poole heading to the wall, her cover is blown if John is either alive or is cognitively there, right? Like so you need to have John either currently dead when she passes through, or him like being like, oh yeah, sure, Arya, okay. And that's not going to happen unless you're right that like a resurrected John is a little bit weird.
That works so well too, because he set it up with Barrick. Barrick can't remember like that woman who he's betrothed to, what her face looks like. Like he forgets so much. I guess he's been resurrected multiple times, but there's a little element to that. They kind of set it up that like John could, if he was resurrected, not recognize Arya.
It's a funny thing thinking back to like George's original outline, and how like John's romance with Arya was going to be such an important aspect, right? That we can't be together because we're half siblings. Actually, we're only cousins. We can totally bang.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That is terrible. I'm so happy that was quiet. That is disgusting.
John's love triangle with Arya and Tyrion.
Yeah,
that's awful. Right. Cut that out. Thank you, George.
That's right.
Because like socially, you're still brother and sister. You grew up brother and sister socially. Shouldn't it still be icky that way?
Yes,
even
it
if
is.
You're not.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a study about kids that were raised on kibbutzes, and that kids that are raised on kibbutzes together in a social environment like that from a young age, they say they rarely pair off, even though they're not genetically similar, because they're raised in a sibling-like environment. They all of a sudden are like, no, that's gross. You're like my brother. You're like my sister. And so they just wouldn't do it. And so, yeah, John being attracted to Arya and vice versa, because both has to happen, is just unlikely. I mean, that's the odd thing even about like Jaime Cersei. Like you think that Jaime Cersei, like for one person to be like in love with their twin is weird, but this has to be two people, right? Two people have to fancy each other.
You both have to be into it.
You both.
Like, what are the odds of that,
right? And think it's fine and not icky. Like you had to have two incredible. Like where in the story is the well, I guess there's Viserys Dany, supposedly the unrequited incest of Viserys Dany, apparently in the Dance with Dragons. But like, you know, wouldn't unrequited incest be like more common?
I'm so happy that was cut. Oh my god, I've learned that and I was like, I hate this idea for the story. Why? Like, because also the idea that it's like, oh, it's okay now. All right, we're not actually.
Yeah, this is what people talk about, like the you know about the Green Lantern pedophile thing.
No. What
the fuck? What I come back to?
Is is there an actor, or is it in the comics?
No, in the comics.
I'm not typing that in on my search history.
Wait a minute.
So Green Lantern had a sidekick who was like he had like a Robin like sidekick who was like a 11-year-old girl or something. And so at some point they want to get him together with her, so they they have something that like ages her body up, so she has the body of a full grown woman. But you're like that doesn't change anything.
It doesn't change
right?
anything.
Right.
That's some anime
Same
shit
thing happens
right
in The
there.
Fly too. I think the character is like he has an accelerated growth, and so he's like 6 years old, but he's a full grown man. You're like, that's still a 6-year-old. Or like Big, the movie Big is the same thing
Yeah.
again. Like it's just like the woman has sex with a child.
Oh boy.
She didn't know it was by accident because she thought he was a full grown human being, but like because he was a full grown man. But no, he was a child. Yeah,
Trey,
like,
I have a question here. Someone intrigued me with this.
Yes.
Someone asked me to ask you. You have Slenderman videos? Slenderman?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I do. I don't think I caught. I was because that's the thing where Slenderman's not really a cryptid, where
Oh.
some people have like been like, oh, Slenderman's a cryptid, but because it's so late and that it's like a creepypasta online that nobody actually claimed to have seen, it doesn't really count. Like it's beyond my. I could do like culture dive into Slenderman, but I've never really looked
Apparently,
into
you made
Slenderman.
2 Slenderman videos about 10 years ago, and you'd like archived the videos. You deleted them.
Oh, I think he's talking about where I used to make video game explained videos. So it would explain like the plot of video games. And those videos, they're not good. Like even if I were to, they're deleted first of all when I just like wanted to change my channel, and they're just not good. They're not worthy to be remembered. Like the fact that he
100%.
remembers them after these many years is
I
kind of funny
understand
to
that.
me. Where it's like I don't even remember them. Like I didn't remember even making them because they're just. I don't know.
Dude,
They were literally like 10 years ago is when I made
I always
them.
encountered people every now and then who like remind me that I did a video. I don't even remember this video. Preston has his entire catalog. Like it's never been deleted. He's like, it's right there. But you and I have deleted some shit that would rather be forgotten.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the problem is
I think every
some of
YouTuber has that.
some of my early videos, like they still get a lot of views, and so I'm like, well, am I gonna delete like the Pink Letter Mystery and the Dornish Master Plan and like Tower Tower Joy Joy when they're still every month getting like thousands of views.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. Yeah, my whole catalog is still up.
And then with
very
older
very few
videos,
videos have been deleted.
you don't like when you're first starting out, you don't know about copyright infringement and those like kind of risks and stuff. So you're like, that video has stuff that's copyrighted, and I don't want to have to worry about that down the line. Because I've had that where somebody comes out of nowhere like 7 years after I upload the video. It's like, hey, you used my art of a dinosaur and didn't credit me in the video. And I was like, oh, I was like 13. I didn't know what I was doing. And they can strike your channel for it. And you're like, oh, how can I resolve this? Like, what do you want me to do about it? I don't know. It's a mess. So like, that's why some videos are disappeared too, where I don't want to be like copyright striked for them and stuff. Like now.
Someone's bringing up fucking the deep lore. Carmine's video about the Cantina band Guitar Hero game is dope. Did I ever show you that? I showed that to
No.
Preston when I was like 20. I sound like a completely
I remember. Yeah.
utterly. I never showed you this, Trey. Like, Jesus
Let me
Christ.
see
This is
this.
like
Let me see this.
I'll send it to you privately. This is ridiculous. I uploaded up to Patreon for like a minute. I'll have to find it. I thought I sent it to you, huh?
Griffith cosplay would win, Trey. No. I
Dude,
need
the
to
sexy
bleach my
calendar could have
hair.
you as like Ice and Fire characters, could have you as Griffith.
Satin, Lady Merriweather.
Yeah, why I mean, serious, why not?
What's her name? I saw some funny fucking fan art of what's Maya Stone. It was like Maya Stone, and it was like a fan wiki for Maya Stone, and it used a picture of Timothy Chalamet as the Maya Stone placeholder. And I was like, that is so funny. That is like the funniest shit I've ever seen. Oh God. Oh.
That's very funny. But I think it's very fun. So if I look at in my last period, okay, my most watched videos of the past month, right? Most watched video was Scandal, George R. Martin deletes video, right? Preston doubles down, live from DC, going over to Daenerys, going over Eddard, going over Tyrion. Is Jace a bastard abstractly? Okay. then like my 11th most, am I down like 11th most or 12th most viewed video? Free Civil War. Like Free Civil War last month still had 5,000 views. Like,
Right.
Jesus.
but that's an awesome video, by the way. I am very proud of Free Civil War.
Little Finger Death Scheme is my favorite, but okay.
Purple Wedding still had 4,000 views. The Battle
I
of
like the
Blood
Purple Wedding.
still had 3,000 views.
Killing Bran. I like Killing Bran.
Yeah,
That's
Killing
a
Bran.
good one, too.
George's Progress on Winds of Winter gets still just a massive amount of views like every month. Like that thing is probably going to affect. Who knows if that thing is going to eventually be my most watched video? But it's like it's amazing. Like some of these old ones. Granted, though, so Night's Watch and stuff like that. So Deeper Dorn. The Dornish Master Plan is still like in the top 25, and that's like still.
And that's like because sometimes you get videos that become like your reputation, like you don't necessarily choose them. Like that's the thing is you don't choose which videos become popular really. Like you can hope that this one becomes popular, but it doesn't mean anything. It's the people.
There are 3 Arias right now, if you include the Arya Alice mishap. The thing is that means there's 4 Arias because that would be Willow at the Inn at the Crossroads is also an Aria. I'm just trying to think how many Arias are there out there. So there's Jane Poole, there's Arya, there's Alice Karstark, there's Willow.
Let's get another one. Sam meets another one.
Oh, there's I'm sorry. There's one of the Children of the Forest because Bran.
Oh yeah.
And he thinks it's Arya.
Oh, and then there's Ygritte. There's Ygritte because John's like, she reminds me of Ygritte or reminds me of Arya.
Right. So Arya's everywhere, man. Everybody reminds her of Arya, and Arya reminds everybody of Lyanna Stark. So.
Oh god.
Oh my god, that's so weird though, because it's like everything's reminding this is if you want to make the John Arya thing even creepier, okay? Remember Arya looks exactly like Lyanna and reminds everybody of Lyanna. So when John is falling in love with Arya, he's falling in love with his own mom.
Ew.
So that's right. That's right.
Unless he's a Sharaдаne's daughter or son. Jon Stark or Jon Snow is a trans man this whole time. Oh god.
How can she be no one if she's everywhere? She's
That's
everyone.
good. That's good.
You're not no one. You're everyone. Mm-hmm. Oh man.
Somebody's asking me for an autograph from Minuteman. I'm not that good of friends with him. We text every 6 months or something like that. We're not that good friends.
Every 6 months.
He's like, "How are you doing?" I'm doing good.
Does Satin look like Arya? That would be
Oh my God.
thing, right? Like, it's just that gross.
Yeah, is Satin X John making it into the fanfic? You gotta at this point. Why did John pick him? Why did John pick him as the Stewart? That's a little weird.
It's just that there's a lot of important things I want to do with John.
Yeah.
As Ghost before even confronting the idea of if I want him resurrected,
Right.
So like Ghost has to do some shit, and we have to experience some shit through Ghost and with John and Ghost. And also like at the wall, like I think there's some really interesting things that can happen at the wall without John, like politically. I've got to figure out like, who would be in charge? Would Satin be in charge? And then who's ruling and who's conquering the different forts?
Yeah.
I have to go back and keep track of who is running each fort and what would likely happen if they heard about a mutiny and things like that. And You know, who's coming out on top in the mutiny? Is it the Kingsmen? Is it the Night's Watch? Is it the Wildlings?
It's the Weeper.
It's the the Weeper eventually. But like,
Yeah, it's very complex.
You know, like thinking about everything. Like, if the Night's Watch is trying to kill off everybody, like the Kingsmen are really well trained fucking knights. You know, like I just feel like they'd be like, just slice everybody down. Or the Queen's Men. I feel like the Queen's Men could win. and
yeah, they have
take control
armor,
of the wall,
they have better
which
weapons.
Means Melisandre's in control of the wall. And then who would she want to be in control? Would she assign Satin? Would she want a new election? I don't know.
Who does Okay, I'm thinking about like who does Melisandre share screen time with? She shares screen time with Mance, Devon. She's got Devon.
Right.
And then all the other people don't really like her. So I don't
the
know.
Queensmen like her, right? The Queensmen do.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but she talks about like how they wouldn't if push came to shove, they wouldn't defend her life because one's like a rapist and one's like a guy with a missing arm, right? Like she doesn't have that many guys actually. Well, I guess Celise is there now. No, I'm like mixing up my timeline because that Mel chapter was before the Kingsmen finally showed up.
See, this should probably have been the topic, but okay, let's talk this through. Carmine, we need your help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me think. Who's at the wall?
We're at the wall. First of all, what's happening? What's going to happen at the end of this like situation where the Night's Watch is like trying to kill everybody off? Like Night's Watch doesn't really have that many men, a few hundred. There's thousands of wildlings there.
Yeah.
The command is in the Shield Hall, and then the Queen's Men are there.
Yeah.
I don't know how many Queen's Men, but let's say
she has 50 Queen's Men who accompany Celise, and there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 named who are like knights. Patrick is dead.
Yeah.
Probably. All these other ones are no names. Let's say
that the Night's Watch is incredibly successful, and they burn the Shield Hall down, and they kill all the wildling chieftains. And
oh
the
my
wildlings freak the fuck out and scatter and like run. Okay, the Queen's Men, there's still 50 of them, trained knights. They're gonna fucking like just take out the Night's Watch. Like I don't.
Yeah, how many people? How many people are part of the Night's Watch?
Best case
we
scenario,
can deduce
they still have to face the Queen's Men.
Yeah. Because let's see the vote. The vote will tell us how many people are still at Castle Black. Night's Watch vote. Because right, like we can see who's voting for themselves versus who's voting for like the Shadow Tower and stuff.
I have to go to I have to go to my
election.
I've got a video on the rigged election of Jon Snow. Because I do the numbers.
This is what the Song of Ice and Fire Westeros.org needs to have better tallies of like the votes in the elections. Because I was curious about the King's Moot, and they don't really tell you like who's a candidate in the King's Moot and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Who switches to whom and like the direction.
Yeah. Which is interesting. That's all interesting because it's told. Let's see.
So I think I probably go over this in the rigged election of Jon Snow Part 1.
Oh my gosh. It scared the crap out of me.
Okay.
Dolores said is there. That is true. So he's talking about Dolores.
Okay, here it is.
And he gets in the show.
Let's go over this. The rigged election of Jon Snow. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we find out that the numbers are 213. Is this round 1 and 2? And then round 3, everything kind of goes weird, right? So we can't. Round 3 is useless because everybody starts. We actually don't even get the tally, but we know it's enough for John, right?
Yeah.
So we know that it seems like at Castle Black, I guess this later one, because a few are voting for Malister and Pike. So among the ones here, it seems like
72.
the Castle Black strictly has looks like a little over 200.
It's 200. Yeah, it's like 216 is
Yeah.
Castle Black. So, yeah, I think Salish could take him 50 because like Castle Black,
50
those are
knights
not
against some fight.
well trained people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're most of them are like builders and engineers at
I
this
mean,
point.
maybe they have
most
better
people have died.
positions with their bows and everything, but these are fucking knights, man.
And not everybody was on the conspiracy too, so you have to cut out
only like, you know, let's say half are in the conspiracy, or maybe even 3/4. Plus, like there's construction, so some of the people have left to repair the previous the other forts. So it's not
less populated than this.
Yeah.
So it's
not to mention Alistair Thorne, and like we can start doing. I mean, granted,
whittle it down.
Come up. Jon Snow is clearly not part of it. Gotta cut. So
yeah, you're right. The fighters are gone because Alistair Thorne's gone, Jon Snow's gone. We don't know
it seems to be a conspiracy of the stewards and the stewards and the builders are the ones that seem to be in on it, and not the rangers. But so say they burn down the shield tower and they kill all of the wildling chieftains. This is best case scenario. And the wildlings come out and they're just like, holy crap, and they run. Because like all of the best fighters are in the shield hall. And so then you just have the Queen's men. The Queen's men end up like running Castle Black, and then have to like figure it out after that.
Who would Salish pick? That's a good question.
What would Salish do at this point?
Yeah, because who does Salish like?
I imagine the Night's Watch that are not part of the conspiracy. So say it's like, you know, they like capture, execute, I don't know, like I don't know what they do. They'd probably just capture them and like not know what to do, and then be discussing the situation. But I think that seems like that's the best case. Like that's the probable situation, that Melisandre is running the wall. Like she's the 999th Lord Commander.
That'd be awesome. That's kind of cool. I like that for Melisandre to be in a position of power like that.
Or maybe I don't know. Maybe it would be sad, and I don't know who'd vote for. I mean, obviously, if Benjen Stark showed up, they'd be like, "Benjen, you're Lord Commander." But
yeah,
that would be something. That would be quite a shock.
I am so curious to know what happened to Benjen, because the fact like he had an easy out with making Cold Hands Benjen, and he
didn't take it.
Apparently chose not to do that. So I don't know what the hell Benjen's doing.
Does John think is coming? Do I think John is coming back? I think that in George's original plan, he probably had John coming back. That's the plot point that's in the show. I think that's probably what what George originally wanted. Who knows if that's currently George's plan? I don't think it's that interesting. Like, I don't think having a literal Jesus.
Wow. I've been talking this entire time and I was muted. What about the pink letter? Doesn't that put Salish in a weird position with the pink letter? Because doesn't the letter also mention her?
Yeah.
Doesn't the letter do what?
I think it mentions Mel. I don't know if
her. In fact, he goes, allegedly Ramsay, I want my bride back. I want the false king's queen. I want his daughter and his red witch.
Okay, so
whatever position Bowen Marsh is taking in doing this mutiny kinda helps Ramsay out, and whatever's helping Ramsay out is not gonna help Salish out. So that throws a wrench.
That's what I'm saying. That like their mutiny is not just against John. Their mutiny is clearly against the Wildlings and the Queen's Men at the same time. Like, it's very clear.
Right.
That they have to think
that Salish would want to like parlay with him, but she can't. So, and doesn't she distrust the Wildlings? She's like
Yeah,
fearful of the
she
giants.
doesn't like wildlings, but yeah.
Yeah.
She has gotten what Garrick King blood or whatever, like she has like civilized a wildling and made him her like pawn kind of. So she looks some wildlings, I guess, like ones that have been civilized. So we should use him.
But I mean, do you think that a red wedding situation has been seeded with the Shield Hall? Like, do you think the wildlings are all dying?
The make them drunk, like a line that Tormund says does sound a bit like a red, like that they're in there. And then he says something about the high ground, right? But I always interpreted him talking about the high ground as being like, let's seal the tunnels of the wall so we have the high ground on the others or the wildlings when they return. So
Ironically,
that was my
I think
initial
Selyse,
interpretation.
But it was
Selyse,
such an
like,
important factor that
they survive by siding with the
Fiddlesticks is,
wildlings.
like, the keymaster, right? They keep talking about the keys.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
It's like, what function do the keys have other than to lock the Shield Hall and to like burn everybody inside?
Is that what you're gonna have for your fanfic? Is that the mutineers are gonna burn the Shield Hall?
We're just talking here, man. We're just having a conversation.
That's it, because I never really interpreted that the Shield Hall was burning, but when you brought it up in a video, I thought that did make sense, because you're right that like they killed John, and the wildlings are going to go immediately after them, right? Like that's just the line of thinking, that they killed the guy that was pro wildling that the wildlings loved, and they just killed their leader, and they take vengeance out on the murderers. Like that just makes logical sense. So Bowen Marsh has to like have some type of fail safe for them to fight these wildlings, unless it was just a very poorly thought out plan. I don't know.
I mean, it can't be like it would be suicide otherwise. Like I'm like he has
How
to
much
have a plan.
How much prep did they have for Tormund to be there? I guess. Like, was it a spur of the moment thing for the Shield Hall, or were they planning ahead? Like that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like how much
when John's like, get everybody together. I've got something to tell people.
Right, and put them all in one place. Like, how much planning did they have? Because for all they knew,
have an hour.
I don't know. Then I don't know if they had enough time. Then again, this is a Song of Ice and Fire.
He delivers the pink letter, and then he says,
Sorry, random comment. Somebody says, Janos Slint, I did everything right and they indicted me. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Janos Slint kind of looks like Trump. They have 2 hours.
They talk for the best part of 2 hours.
And Clytus might be in on it and might have read the letter.
You know, this is assuming that like everybody's been reading the pink letter, that the sealed wax was opened, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's chancy. I'm thinking, because it's a big plan for them to enact. But either way, it's a big plan for them to enact, to do the assassination then rather than at a different time. I guess they were planning it way far in advance, and then John was like, "I'm going to be on this expedition south to attack Ramsay," and they're like, it's do or die. Like they're like, we need to do it now.
Okay, when they're crossing through, he says, when they're crossing through, he says, there is much to decide. Spread the word, because he's talking about, right now they're discussing plans of going to Hardhome. And so he says, there's much to decide. Spread the word. I want all the leading men in the Shield Hall when the evening watch begins. So there's going to be a watch change. Tormund should be back by then. Where can I find Toreg? So they know exactly when all of the wildling chieftains are going to be in the hall.
Right. And it's on a watch change that they can control. They can control the watch, maybe, of who's going to be on and who's going to be asleep.
Yes.
Okay, because they're the stewards. Okay, I'm kind of getting into it.
And they have the keys.
And they have all the keys.
Because they're the stewards.
And the Shield Hall is covered in cobwebs.
There's cobwebs everywhere. It's a complete fire hazard.
Okay, and is it stressed that the shield hall is overpacked, like that it's overcrowded? Um,
I think so. I think
because I know it hasn't been used in a long time. Because if that's stressed, then yeah, probably it is a red wedding situation. If it's like explicitly said that like people are too close, bumping into each other, that it's a emergency situation, a crunch, as the British people say.
Shield Hall is old hall of dark stone. It's long and drafty, blackened oak rafters,
Yeah.
large enough to seat 200 people, 300 seated close together.
Oh, how many people ended up in there? It sounds like a lot of people, like more than 300 or around 300 are in the Shield Hall.
Yeah, so
John.
all the leaders apparently. Yeah,
That'd be good, and that's smart because like they eliminate all the leaders, all the soldiers have no commander.
I'm just
Yeah,
saying it would be it would be really stupid. It would be really stupid for them not to try to kill the leaders. Like,
yeah,
why would you just kill John?
right.
And
Because they're done. Because the
Sorry.
wildlings could just take it by force. They could just take the watch by force because they outnumber them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm in on it. I think there is like a assassinate the leaders subplot set up here. It would be a punch. It would be a punch in the gut to not just kill John, but kill off all these wildling leaders.
When I've mentioned this before, people kind of say, "Well, you're really going to kill off Tormund, like right then and there? Like he's such a great character." And it's like the guy was dumb enough to be in the Shield Hall.
Where's the character of Val? Is Val
she's in the
Shield Hall?
tower? No, she's in the tower. She's in the tower that one was guarding. Tormund. Let me see if Tormund was even in this. If he's still in the Shield Hall, did he come out? I think you're right. The last time we see him is in the Shield Hall.
I don't get it. Isn't it enough people to use a table as a battering ram to bust out? Well, that's the question. Is it going to be a successful assassination attempt, or is it going to be an unsuccessful one?
We have a lot of wildling. Let's just say we have a lot of disposable wildling chieftains. We have like 10, or like a lot by name, and they have to die. Like a couple of them have to die. Why name all these characters if they're not going to die? You know, like. Because I know it's like Mora of the White Mask and the Big Walrus and like all these minor chieftains that we kind of hear about, but they don't really have they're not really characters. Maybe let Tormund live, because how do we resolve Hardhome? Is anybody actually going to Hardhome in the story, or is it just something happening off screen?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like. At this point, there's a big burning thing. Like, who fucking cares about Hardhome anymore?
Right, we got too much to worry about here.
You just kind of leave Hardhome. You're just like, well, I guess they're all dead.
Sucks for them. Sucks for Mother Mole.
No one's going to Hardhome.
The reason I ask where's Val is because if the leaders are dead, then who takes over? Who rallies
Val
the
would
men?
probably take over. You're right.
Yeah.
Val would probably take over.
Not only that, though, but Selyse would probably align with Val since she kind of wasn't Selyse having Val marry Sir Patrick? Wasn't that like the last thing?
Well, Selyse
they talked about it. Yeah.
So
and Sir Patrick was apparently trying to get into the tower to steal Val in the same way that like Jon stole Egret and stuff, like the wildling custom. So yeah. So I guess he was trying. So yeah. Okay, I'm on board with I'm sorry, Tormund, but I'm on board with the.
You're putting that in the fanfic, aren't you?
Tormund's a great character, but it would almost like, and it's weird to like kill him, and you could have Melisandre, because obviously Melisandre is going to be our POV, so you could have Melisandre like describing like Tormund like busting out and like killing 20 Night's Watch people before finally like 17 arrows taking him down. It could be a glorious.
That'd be so cool. Yes, please.
The motherfucker has to die, right?
Are the editors listening? Write this shit down. Write this shit down.
No,
You guys
he
got
has
this.
to meet Brienne. He has to meet Brienne.
Yeah, and eat like his pork knuckle like this. It's very important.
He has to be on the ranging to the lake in season 7 or whatever. He has to be in that great group with the Hound and
He has to be really
Gendry.
impressed by John's dragon riding abilities, but not impressed by Danny's dragon riding abilities, and create a rift between John and Danny at a party.
He's crucial. You pull him out. It's all.
I'm just saying, besides people generally kind of liking Tormund, what function does Tormund have in the story?
He's too tortured. His son just died. His sickly son died. He had to kill him himself.
I mean, he does sing songs. He's one of the few people that actually sing songs.
Yeah. He's the only person that sings that's left. This is a really good question because I can see both sides on Tormund dying, Tormund staying.
I mean, Dunk. Keep in mind, Dunk dies at Summerhall. Like Tormund is just like, fantastically heroic or something. He like saves 5 chieftain leaders, pulling them from the fire, running back in and grabbing more.
The sad part is that Preston. I know you don't want to kill these characters off, but we gotta reach the end, and some guys got to go. So I understand.
Yeah, people have to die. And that the guy with the boar that has to come back. Remember, he has his boar.
Oh right.
Yeah, and if he dies, his second life goes into the boar, and he starts like killing people left and right. You have this like, crazy battle scene.
Oh my god! And then it's just like it's exactly like the fucking Red Wedding.
It's fucking like Red Wedding.
That's what wipes out the. See now it's like that's what wipes out the Night's Watch. It's the fucking boar. Well, where is the boar?
It's like the Red Wedding, where like the Red Wedding said that there were wargs there, and now there's actually wargs there. There's actually wargs killing people, and it's not just the Hound.
Oh,
that's good. That works out really good.
You're so.
That works out really good.
Oh my god!
That boar.
Write the shit down.
Borak's boar.
Borak's
boar is just gonna go around fucking killing everybody.
Because he is explicitly mentioned to be in the Shield Hall too. Like John makes a note of it.
Does he bring the boar?
He does not bring the boar. He leaves the boar in the stable or something like that. So he could presumably do a second life into the boar or skin change the boar. He has to. He has to. Why bring this character? Why bring Borosh, whatever his Borak, into the story if you're not going to have him like skin change it and use it violently to kill people? It's too good. It's too because you got one.
Absolutely right.
You have one running around. You got a boar running around. You got Shield Hall on fire.
You've got a screaming giant. And you have a fucking boar going around killing everybody. The king, like
too good.
I don't even
know. The chaos is fun, and then
it's too good. Yeah.
And then you have the mutineers who would just be a few of them, but once the chaos starts breaking out, the other members of the Night's Watch think who aren't in on the plan. Think the wildlings are just attacking for whatever reason, so they join in too.
Yeah, they see the boar and they see the giant.
Know. Like it would be such chaos that no one would know who's on whose side.
Yeah.
Yo, someone send this to George.
George hasn't written this part.
We'd be really sad. Yeah. We're sad if he hasn't written this chapter. But you're right that it's such absolute chaos.
Yeah.
There's a screaming giant and a boar and just
that eats people. The boar eats people because the boar apparently is at the graves. It roots around in the graves of Castle Black, so it's like a human eater, like the dragons.
Right, it takes up residence in an ancient tomb where the boar roots amongst the graves. Oh God!
Say that's too good. It's too good not to bring back. Like I'm picturing Mel just look out the window and just see absolute chaos.
Yeah. But at this point, like now, like who survives? It's gonna be fucking brutal. There's gonna be like 10 people left.
Dolores Ed definitely has to stick around because he's too fun, and he's like, doesn't he make a joke about like I'll be the last person manning the wall or something like that? And it'd be funny for him to actually be.
Did he go to one of the forts?
He is in charge of one of the forts, but I think he came back. Did he come back?
Yeah, he briefly
He
returns to
returned.
Castle Black with 6 wagons, so that more spearwives
Okay.
can be transported to Longbarrow.
Okay,
I
maybe
hate to
he's not
break it
there
to you,
anymore.
Trey. I hate to
Yeah,
break it to you, Trey. If Tormund's going, Saturn's got to go. He's there.
he does, which is sad. It's just sad for Saturn. But like, I feel like there needs to be more with that character. Why bring up this character if they're just gonna like? At least Tormund served a purpose to leading the wildlings back and get them across the wall. Like, why bring Saturn into the story? Don't know. Then again, what the fuck? What the fuck can you do with Saturn? Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I'm trying to think like what George would do. George would have like some absolute randos survive. I mean, he wouldn't kill off Dolores Ed, but he would have like a lot of randos.
Hmm.
Like first of all, like Sweet Donald Hill is
Sweet
definitely
Donald Hill
surviving.
survives.
Okay,
Sweet
like
Donald Hill survived Craster's Keep and the
there is
mutiny, and he's
definitely like Sweet Donald Hill is not dying. Is he? Is
what
he
about
still?
the
He's a steward too.
what about the guy that with the arrows, the guy that was in the Kingswood Brotherhood,
Oh right, Garth Greyfeather.
Garth Greyfeather, and um
Oh my god. But
oh, this is so fun to figure out who's gonna live, who's gonna die.
no, Garth Greyfeather gets
Um,
killed by the Weeper.
oh no! I thought the let me see. Maybe it's not Garth Greyfeather. Um, Kingswood. I don't know if that's his name. Let's see. What is his name?
Oh, Almer.
Almer. Yeah, Almer of the Kingswood. Yeah, I think Almer's still alive. He shot Mance. He shot
Yeah.
the Rattleshirt. He's one of the best archers, ready to respond if there's any trouble. So, yeah, so Ulmer's still around and he's still there. So he has to come into play too. Like he kills somebody. He kills Tormund. Oh my god, he's the one who looses the arrow at Tormund into Tormund's heart.
I mean, do I have stones? Like
Stone Snake come
the
back.
thing is, here's the fake out. Okay,
I'm back,
like,
baby. I'm back. I've made it over.
first of all,
the
this
Frostbank.
chapter is fucking crazy so far because it's just like it's Melisandre alive with like a handful of Kingsmen and
Yeah.
like a handful of Night's Watch. Everybody is fucking dead.
He's dead.
Because
It's at the end of a Shakespeare play.
Fires, giants, and boars. Like this is like okay. And then here's the thing. Yeah, like we establish all this that's happened. Like it's just fucking chaos. And then at the end, you have a Night's Watch person like show up at the gate. And it's set up, everybody's like, oh my god, it's Benjen. And then the next fucking chapter, you fucking reveal that it's fucking Stone Snake.
Fuck off.
And everybody's like, fuck you!
That is so funny and bold. I love it, and it has to happen.
It's so that you totally fuck with him, and you're like, it's Stone Snake.
And he's super competent. He's like,
Or,
really...
I mean, people will be arguing like, oh, what? It's Alistair Thorne because he said he was going to come back. Alistair Thorne, maybe. But you know, there's a lot of people out there that could. Oh,
I want Alistair Thorne to at Hardhome. He actually saves the wildlings. Like he has this arc off screen.
Is he heading that direction? I don't even know.
He's
just ranging. Do they tell them which direction to go, or do they just go fuck off?
just go anywhere. Look for the wild the others. The others have fucking just wandered around for no reason for 4 books, 5 books, or whatever.
What do you mean range? What am I doing? I don't know.
Yeah, at least with the other one, they were looking for Mance and his army. Like now, like what are you doing? I guess they're looking for the Weaver.
I mean, but it's such a random thing. Like imagine I'm like, okay, Trey, I need you to find my friend. He's in Kansas, and you'd be like, well, where fucking in Kansas? Check the whole fucking state. You'd be like.
No, I feel like it's worse than that. He's in Canada. He's just in Canada.
He's in Canada. I want you to go. Yeah. Well, they said what the wall is 300 leagues.
Yeah, 300 leagues. Oh,
that's 900 miles. So it's not quite Canada,
miles.
But it's like you're right that it's bigger than Kansas. It's like
like
Montana.
Alaska.
It's It's like sending someone to Montana, being like, "Go find my friend in the wilderness." Just go fucking ranging.
Oh my gosh.
Um, Diamond Season Ranger scouted. They go. We want you to scout beyond the wall, and he accepts the mission. Okay, go scout. Any direction? Just
Did you see? Did you see what Theory of Ice and Fire said?
what's that?
At the end, it's the 120 Northmen Rob talked about sending to the wall with orders to free John from the Night's Watch vows.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean,
I'm thinking about who needs to show up at the wall. Like who do we have? Like who's like because there's so many people north and around the wall that can show up at any time.
it's true. I mean, Al-Ardim, man. Al-Ardim shows up to like
Allard, oh, this is Allard. This is when Allardim shows up. He shows that he's one of the survivors. He was one of like the nameless people.
but the 120 Northmen, I think that, I mean, if that order is with the will, it's all getting lost in the neck, right?
Can we
So
can we bring back the Doomsday
the
prophets?
Doomsday Prophecy. I mean, I was
Oh,
thinking about it in the Davos chapter, because like if Davos goes to Skagos,
oh.
you might pass through Eastwatch, but
Oh, I thought you were saying that no, it doesn't work. I was like that Allardim was thrown overboard near Skagos and he's on Skagos now.
so no, I got so a long time ago, like over a year ago, somebody submitted a Davos chapter where yeah, no, that happened. That like in his version, Al-Ardim was washed up on Skagos, and he's like a character on Skagos. Um, yeah, but no, I was thinking that Al-Ardim would just be like at Eastwatch as like a
Yeah.
regular person. That he arrived with
We know.
Janice Flint, and that he
Yeah.
was just there at Eastwatch,
Yeah.
along with a few of the
Listen,
Doomsday people. You know,
so Stone Snake, bringing Stone Snake back would be the funniest
no,
fuck you to the audience.
Stone Snake.
It is
Unfortunately,
George.
Stone Snake. Logically speaking, Stone Snake would go to the Shadow Tower. I mean, he's from the
Okay.
Shadow Tower. He's closer to the Shadow Tower.
Yeah.
So we just don't have a POV on like logically speaking. There's no reason for Stone Snake to show up to Castle Black. He
Hmm.
would show up to the Shadow
Damn it.
Tower.
That would have been so, because that is kind of like a George fuck you. Like, I could see George doing something like that. Maybe not to that scale, but yeah, like have just like this
But you don't think
random.
Arya taking an axe to the back of the head is a fuck you to that level?
That is a fuck you to the audience. That is bullshit. And he's done it because he used it in the past, right? He used it in
Yeah.
something with some other book, some Thousand Worlds thing.
So I mean, like, yeah, like
Okay.
he gets lost here. Like Stone Snake gets lost somewhere in the Frost Fangs. It would make too much sense for him to go to Shadow Tower. Um, not much. The only thing that would be keeping him from going to the Shadow Tower is that the Weeper army is there. So it may be that he sees
Hmm.
the Weeper's army and Stone Snake would head to Castle Black instead. But then he would see some of the other forts that have been reopened and he would
Hmm.
maybe cross over there. But or
Hmm.
maybe he doesn't know they're open, so he's
Maybe he would probably know about the what's the one with the
the Black
face?
Gate.
He would probably know about the Black Gate being a ranger. So he goes through there like Sam.
Yeah, he seems like the kind of guy who would have those secrets. Yeah, he would
Yeah.
know about the Black Gate. So he'd pass through the Black Gate, but then he would still head to Castle Black on the
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Gosh, we got some good ideas this time, you know. We got some Borel's boar running around.
oh man.
It's too good. It's too good. Like so sometimes we just hit something and it's just too interesting. You're like, that's too fun.
Oh yeah, something when you like the minute you hit it and you're like that's just like the right idea. Like yes, that
Yeah.
boar is fucking everybody up, and the giant is swinging people around and
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
Yeah, and the shield hall is aflame, and everybody's screaming and dying, and there's like they bust the door open, and it's wildlings on fire and flaming men, and it's like George had that idea of Smiler, like the horse that was on fire. Like he had
Oh
the
yeah.
idea of like a horse on fire, and he's just like, I'm just gonna have that, and that's clearly gonna be my imagery. Mm-mm. All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about before I sign off this evening?
No, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
No, I'm all right.
Trey, thank you for joining me on this. Carmine, thank you for joining me on this
Oh, thank you.
on this this no super chat, no misses. This is us just shooting the shit, shooting the shit.
You
Wait,
really should consider having like a poll, like maybe on your Patreon or something, or who shows up at the end, which Night's Watch member or which character shows up at the end.
And then
See
there's
what
Preston,
the
like
audience.
Preston,
who's best.
look,
Benjamin's gonna win.
Don't put
yeah.
Benjamin.
Sometimes
Don't
the
put
fans are wrong.
Benjamin.
Sometimes democracy's wrong. Sometimes. Wait, Preston, before you go, look at this comment. Stone, waking stone dragons. Dragons are worms, snakes.
Mm.
Stone snake prophecy fulfilled.
Oh man, that is perfect. Yes, yes. Stones. You're right. Stone snake, the stone worm. Oh, a stone. Oh, he's a dragon. It's all about stone snake.
Snakes the prince
Yay.
that's promised.
It's gonna be such a fucking random chapter now that I'm thinking that it's like fucking Mel, stone snake, and satin talking about
Dolores
the
and
wall.
sweet Donald Hill.
Sweet. I mean,
Like,
it
he's
goes
like,
without
man,
saying that Sweet Donald Hill is surviving.
he's
There's
like,
no
I
way that
really
Sweet Donald Hill is not surviving. Okay, that guy is unkillable. He is
he's been in two mutinies and survived two mutinies.
right, and he's
He's like, ooh, that was a close one. They're all dead. They can't say that I was in on
the thing is he's been on the wrong side of it. Keep in mind he's a Jon Snow supporter. So he like
it.
voted for Jon. So he's on the wrong side. Like again, like during another. Oh, but is he a steward? Maybe he was. Maybe he's on the anti-John. Who knows what Sweet Donald Hill is doing this? Whatever the case,
It's
he's
like
going to pretend like he was not in on the
Varys. You know how
conspiracy.
Varys is like, who knows what Littlefinger's up to? Who knows what Sweet Donald Hill's up
Sweet Donald Hill. It's like the most incredible. See, people are like, who's like the smarter like planner? Is it Doran Martell? Is it Varys? Is it Illyrio? And I'm gonna say like it's Sweet Donald Hill. Sweet Donald Hill is like master plan.
to?
Oh man.
Oh my god.
I will be very real with you. If you have Alardim show up at the very end, I will be pissed. I will be annoyed because that's a joke that got out of control. I love you, but that's a
No, I
joke.
mean, I'm fine. I'm not having LRD being NBC. I think like as I might have LRD as a throwaway, be a random Night's Watchman at Eastwatch, but like that's it. Like, and then there would be a battle and everyone would die. It doesn't like keep in mind everybody's dying. I mean, the others are coming. I mean,
Yeah.
the Reaper is coming and the others are coming. Like everybody's dying. Don't worry. But it's funny that LRD would just be like randomly there, you know.
Like most people north of the neck, there's like a 75% chance they're dying. If
Oh
even
yeah.
that. Yeah, if even that, it might be like 90 or something. You got to really get rid of people with the
Oh yeah.
others showing
Gren, Pip. I mean, we're fucking. I
up.
mean, the sad thing is that we're gonna have to kill Dolores Ed.
No.
I know. I know. I mean, even the show killed Dolores Ed
I
badly.
like Ed being like a suffering character that like he's forced to live even though he wants to die.
Like everybody else is killed, and he's just like, well, figures, you know. Oh God. All right, guys. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you for being with me. Wasting time tonight. I will talk to you guys soon.